We live? Okay. Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for February 22nd, 2021. This is the 10 a.m. session. No public testimony is permitted during this review session. The first item is adjournments. Item number 1, 2017-21 BZ, 3438 38th Street, Queens. The following is a postponement. Item number 2, 2019-38 BZ, 222-3496th Avenue, Queens. The following are decisions. Item number 3, 2509 BZ, 277 Canal Street, Manhattan.
Okay, just a reminder to our council, because we received a letter a few days ago from the representative for the applicant, that this is also a request to change the name of the operator to UFC Soho Gym. And then I was kind of, uh-oh, have we looked at that? But, you know, it's been here a long time. We received the DOI sign off in July 2019. Changes to the drawings were made as requested, and a complete properly bubbled set was submitted on February 16th. Which included correct ADA plan notes, which was something that Chase had noted. And I want to also, just as a reminder to our council, to note in the resolution that one of the things that they removed from the application was the banners, and that if they want to put the banners back, they could do that without coming back to the board for a new review, but as an LSC or a letter of no objection. So if that could be noted in the resolution, so it's just easy for future board to know. Okay, I have a thumbs up from Chase. Okay, so then I go to Vice Chair Shanda. Oh, actually, I can just make a motion to grant unless anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, so motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Shetta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Item number 4, 28109 BZ, 246 Spring Street, Manhattan.
Okay, in response to our comments at the last executive session, because we deferred decision on this, the outdoor seating area has been removed from the PCE, which frankly is the easiest solution, and is now accessible only from the hotel area. The plans and the statement of facts have been revised to reflect this, and a letter was submitted by the architect to confirm, as was requested again by Chase Fine, to confirm that the PCE area does not include the outdoor area, and apparently never did, so there's no change in the amount of area. So with that, I don't think we had any conditions. Motion to, oh, well, actually, should we have a condition that the outdoor area is not to be used in connection with the PCE, just to make that clear? And so then a motion to grant on that condition.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Shetta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Application is granted. Item number 5, 82586 BZ, 1703 Bronxdale Avenue, Borough of the Bronx.
Just a second. I have a lot of notes on this, just a sec. Okay, so we received amended plans showing the refrigerated trash storage and the cellar in section that the cellar had not been shown in the section before. The occupancy chart, which was a subject of a lot of discussion at the last hearing, has been corrected to show occupancy of the assembly spaces to a maximum of 850 persons, plus occupancy of back of house spaces to a maximum of 38 persons. So a maximum building occupancy. So I really want the resolution to be very clear about this, because that was the debate at the hearing. last hearing. So it's a maximum building occupancy of 888 persons, okay? The resolution should make this very clear, and that information should be reflected in the certificate of occupancy. We received also a restrictive declaration, which is in the standard form required by the Department of Buildings to restrict both the subject site and the parking lot site, and must be recorded against both properties before release of the resolution. So that's the standard form restrictive deck. So we really didn't need to have our council review it because DOB has been relying on this for years. And I just want to be clear, which is a condition, that the bridal suites, which are independent of the assembly spaces, are not to be used for bridal showers or anything that could be operated independent of the event at the banquet hall that would increase building occupancy. So that's a condition. Okay, so based on that, motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Application has been granted. Item number 6, 24503BZ, 160-11 Willets Point Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, so I'm going to apologize in advance to the commissioners and staff, but reviewing the submission on this put me in such a state that it colored my review of the other applications that are in this, that we are hearing today, because it sort of heightened my sensitivity to bad representation. So we had asked, and so to start off so I'm apologizing in advance because my tone is going to be angry on many of these applications, and this one started me off. So on a better note, we asked for a management plan to avoid the cars from piling up in the street and in the drive-through, and we received something from the owner, which their counsel should have taken and distilled into something kind of intelligible that we could have used as a condition or as something to rely on. And we didn't get that. So it's a little bit free association from the owner, but it basically talks about how McDonald's technology is improving. And so the throughput is much greater, especially when you have 2 menu boards, and that they have an app where you can order in advance, and the food can be brought to your car if you park in the lot, or you can go to a pickup window and so on. And those things should increase the throughput, and therefore shouldn't have as much pile up in the streets, right? So that's great that the owner did that. That's what we requested they do, that the owner do, but it was not distilled in any form by a lawyer who would have put it into some kind of clear language that we could have then taken and used for our own purposes in the resolution. So it means our lawyers will have to do that. And so that's a theme on this application. So I have to say that on this application, we have been asked to be, to essentially be land use counsel on behalf of this owner, because applicant's counsel doesn't do any of its own work. This is actually the reason, and I really hope the owner is listening to this, but I'm going to reopen this, not now, but later today. I'm going to reopen this so the owner can attend and hear, but I hope the owner is listening to this. This is the reason that this application has taken however many hearings it's taken. I think it's something like 11, some number like that, right? It's many of which were adjourned. It's not the Board of Standards and Appeals, which I'm sure the owner thinks it's because of this agency that it's gone on and on. It's because council didn't do its work. We asked at the very beginning, how in the world can you have a commercial use in a residence district? And nobody answered the question. And it wasn't until at the very end when I said, nobody ever answered the question. And I have to say, having been a land use lawyer in active practice, the first question out of my mouth when I see this site plan would have been, the site extends beyond the district boundary line way more than 25 feet. So how in the world could the whole thing be treated as a commercial, an existing non-conforming commercial use? How? So because the McDonald's hasn't been there since the beginning of time. It's only been there since the 80s or something, right? So that's the first thing. This was not pursued, considered, discussed, reviewed, anything by counsel for the owner. And so it wasn't until we forced them to look at it that they realized they'd made a mistake and that they had to go back to the original. That's not even why I'm upset, because that's sort of really expensive water under the bridge, let's say. But that the last hearing and the one before that, we said, you have to go back and change the shape of the entrance to be the way it was before, because you cannot have the traffic pattern for the drive-through be located beyond the district boundary line that was moved by 25 feet in a special permit. You have to have it within the district boundary line, right? And so we said, and then we have a traffic problem here. We said, you have to keep the drive-through separate from the drive-by lane, therefore provide 2 curb cuts, or alternatively, which I didn't like as an alternative, a curb cut that's wide enough. The response to us at the last hearing, when we said that, from not the land use lawyer, but from the engineer who's doing the drawings, who is not a zoning expert. And last I looked, land use lawyers are supposed to be zoning experts. The engineer said, no, the zoning resolution says you can't have curb cuts closer to each other than 18 feet without citing the section in the zoning resolution that said so. So I said, you have to cite the section in the zoning resolution that applies to this site, to the conditions on this site, and explain to us why you can't have the curb cut situation the way we had directed them to do. And rather than doing that work, they submitted a drawing that shows a narrow curb cut that doesn't even allow for a car to get onto the drive-through without driving onto the sidewalk. That was the first thing. And then the second one was that they submitted, they claimed that section, what is it? Sorry, curb cuts. Section, sorry, it's 36 something or other. Now I have to look for that again. They claim that a section in the zoning resolution 3658, I think, requires that there be 18 feet between curb cuts, but they didn't explain why or anything. And they didn't look it up. And the land use lawyer relied on the engineer for that statement. So I looked at it and I read the section, and the section applies, it's 3658, yes. So 3658 only applies to developments. A development is a new building, new construction. Enlargements, an enlargement is the addition of floor area to an existing building. That's not happening here. Or an increase in the size of an accessory parking lot. That's not happening here either. If anything, it's a reduction in the size of the accessory parking lot because of all of the additional drive-through and planting and everything like that. So this section 3658 does not apply here. Instead, what applies is the Department of Transportation rules and the administrative code, the building code, which says that, and it's section 406.7.6 curb cuts in the building code, which says that, in short, you can have up to a 30-foot wide curb cut where there's a frontage of 100 feet or less. This place actually has 160 feet of frontage. And between the curb cuts on the same lot, you can have 5 feet. So all this time, the land use lawyer was relying on the engineer who's not a zoning expert and not doing any homework at all to insist on a condition that is not required. And I'm furious. And the owner should be furious because this is costing needlessly. It's costing the owner money, which I frankly think he shouldn't have to pay. So I'm going to move to reopen this so that we can direct the applicant to do what they were supposed to do. And in addition to which, we found that the lumen spread diagram was still showing more than 0 over the district boundary line. So it's just like, I'm beside myself about this. So I'd like to make a motion to reopen, and then we'll hear it either later today, depending on how we go with the rest of the hearing and the morning schedule and in the afternoon schedule. So a motion to reopen. You're muted.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
You're muted.
Aye.
Okay, so
Aye.
this application is reopened. Item number 7, 34312BZ, 570 East 21st Street, Brooklyn.
And it's just so upsetting. I can't even tell you. Okay. Sorry, lots of scrolling, just a second. All right. A letter of objection that I just need to pick up things that we've received since. So a letter of objection was submitted on Thursday, this past Thursday, that insists the site must obtain a 73-122 special permit for school dormitories. However, what was granted, just for the record, what was granted was a variance for a boarding and day school, where the dormitory aspect of the institution is accessory to the school itself. So the DOB objection did not require a special permit, which is what's stated in the objection letter. And the variance addressed the issue, which was listed in the resolution as one of the DOB objections. So everything is in order. This dormitory is an accessory to the school. And no special permit for a dormitory, separate dormitory is needed. Those special permits exist for the purpose of granting separate dormitory buildings isolated from schools. Photos were provided of the site cleaned of equipment and construction material storage. We have an acceptable restrictive declaration, which modified. Our council worked with their council back and forth, and came to an agreement. And we have a contract with the site maintenance company with an operational plan writer to which the resolution should refer. And we just received a slight modification to the operational plan to make sure that it conforms to the restrictive declaration. So we're good with that. And then also Department of Buildings website, BIZ website, shows the ECB violations have been paid. So everything looks like it's in order. And so I'm just going to read through kind of the gist of the conditions, which I've read through before, but just to make sure that our council gets all of the issues. We discussed how we might be able to move forward on this application with a strictly conditional approval that would ensure that what is eventually built on the site conforms to the board's expectations. And that's the purpose. That's kind of what the restrictive declaration is trying to cover. One of the reasons I personally was supportive of the original application was that, in addition to meeting the needs of a severely underserved school population with extraordinary medical requirements, the building design was extremely sensitive to neighborhood character and the design itself of high quality. The letter from the project manager indicates that the original architects, the project manager for the applicant, indicates that the original architects will not be the ones to prepare the construction documents. So I state here that one of the conditions must be that the project that will be built must be the one that was approved with the same high design quality, material quality, massing, and detail. So no slipping in of a mediocre building, because a lot of what made this such a good project was it was a well-designed building. Furthermore, of course, the extension of the variance runs only to the Brooklyn school and only to be used as a school for children with severe disabilities requiring on-site rehabilitative support, both for day students and live-in dormitory residents. Deviation from this program, which is the basis upon which the board granted the waivers in 2015, will void the variance. Any modifications to this project or program, short of minor tweaks, will require a new variance application, and minor tweaks still need to come before this board, before the BSA, to determine if they're minor. Otherwise, it's a new variance application. Furthermore, during the period that the interim school operates and pending the ability of the school to begin construction, the site cannot be left in the state that it was until cleaned up just a few days ago. And it shall not be used as a staging area for construction equipment or any kind of material storage of any kind that's not related to the active construction on the site for the school. So it can't be used as a storage area for another property or a parking lot or any of those other things that are not permitted in the zoning district. Okay, so with that, and I think we have closed seeker, right? We have a neg deck issued. Oh, it was previously issued, right? So yeah, we're good. So then on that conditional motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
This application's been granted. Item number 8, 2016-1185A, 45-14 and 4540 51st Street, Queens.
So we received sort of belatedly a community board recommendation to approve. We also received, for the record, the status of the litigation that is holding up the closing of the applicant's acquisition of the site. The question really is, but it seems like we talk about having a 4-year extension from the time of the last expiration, which was November 1st, 2020. So it's a 4-year extension. So on that, a motion to grant, unless there are comments.
Chair Perlmutter, I'm
Aye.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Application's granted. Item number 9, 2019-27BZ, 4533 18th Avenue, Brooklyn.
Getting there. So many notes. Okay, we have a fire department submission that recommends installation of a fire alarm system, a fireproof self-closing 1.5-hour door at the rear of the cellar to the existing passageway, and emergency lighting. Those changes are shown on the drawing, so we're in response to that letter. Those elements are a condition of approval. A submission was made by the engineer who appeared at the last hearing, who apparently is not the engineer of record on this project. It outlines a series of probes that should be conducted. Sorry, let me say that again. A series of probes that should be conducted to determine the structural integrity of the building. It doesn't at this point conclude what measures must be taken based on the review of the probes and related testing. This was not submitted to DOB's engineer, Mr. Ian King, at the forensics unit as we directed them to do at the last hearing. This must be done before we release the resolution. I don't know, and of course I'll defer to Commissioner Shetta, but I don't know whether the protocol is sufficient to meet DOB's requirements. And certainly the findings of the test results must be reviewed by the structural engineer and approved by DOB. So perhaps, this is a suggestion to commissioners, given the poor history with this property owner, we should keep this on a very short leash and require that the applicant return to this board for a compliance hearing in, say, 18 months, by which time all DOB required structural and code modifications will have been approved by DOB and installed. In addition, our compliance officer, so Ted, this is for you if you can hear us. So put that on your calendar. Our compliance officer will follow up with Mr. Ian King at DOB to make sure that the protocols are being followed. And if not, we will call the owner in for an earlier compliance hearing and potentially revoke the variance. So this is to underscore that this owner needs to take these directions seriously. We're not joking around, and we have revoked variances and special permits in the past. Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
I'm sorry, Chair. I just wanted to note 18 months. Is that correct? Follow up from today?
No, so actually you would be following up, say, from today in 2 months with Mr. King, the engineer at DOB, to see if they've made submissions. And I'd say put it on your calendar for every 2 months, follow up with him, unless he tells you something different. And then let us know, of course, let one of us, let me know that if something hasn't happened according to expectations, so that we can recall them for compliance.
Okay, noted, Chair.
Okay, so
Thank
it's every
you.
2 months you'll follow up with Mr. King. I don't want you to.
Okay, noted.
Too much. Okay, all right. And then the other, yeah. Okay, so. And then the other thing is a condition. I'd like to hear what commissioners have to say about this idea, but a condition would be structural stability of the building should be evaluated and certified per DOB to DOB satisfaction, and including DOB's forensic unit. And failure to comply, as I said, would result in a compliance hearing or a revocation of the variance. So I could make a motion to approve on those grounds, but just to speed things up, but I really do want comments from the commissioners about whether they think this is the right way to go. So Vice Chair Shanda.
Honestly speaking, I don't know what DOB's requirements are in terms of when they review it. But given the concerns that you have raised, if you want to put it as a condition and prior to any certification or TCO that is verified by DOB, that would be okay.
No, it's not TCO. No. This is more, they're not allowed to proceed until with even moving forward with the rest of the project until they've done the probes.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, so the protocol, in case you didn't see the protocol, which we received really late, I think.
I did review, I did see it briefly, but it wasn't clear to me as to when that was going to be implemented.
Okay. So, all right, so to make this clear, the protocol has to be enacted immediately, like followed immediately.
Okay.
So starting, tomorrow, they need to bring in whoever it is who's going to physically do the probe. The probes are being made, and then a report submitted to DOB, but the protocol has to be accepted by DOB. So first the protocol needs to be accepted by DOB, then enacted, and so on. Yeah, and I know Commissioner Shetta has his hand up. So let me go around the room though, in the normal order. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no problem with you making that a condition.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Shetta.
Thank you, Chair. I recall that during the last hearing, we said we're gonna specify a condition that this structural integrity thing will be cleared by DOB, including, and I recall that specific word, including the FEU, Forensic Engineering Unit. And I recall that I did ask the applicant from now on forward, I said this, from now on forward, submit whatever correspondences directly to the Forensic Engineering Unit, and they can handle that from now. I'm not sure why the confusion is happening and we're getting this protocol. This protocol was kind of submitted during the last hearing.
No, we asked for it. So that was a question from the project manager. There was no way for us to know whether they had done it at all. And clearly they hadn't done it at all, because the reason we got it is because they did it because we asked. So
Okay.
that was a way to check out on whether they were even protocol.
Okay,
Okay.
that's even good. I'm okay with that. So what I believe we should do is, number one, a condition. No brainer. We should put a condition in our grant so we have clear hands of anything that's gonna happen later on. Hopefully nothing. Number two, I believe we should be copied on submissions to DOB, just for information. We need to get copies. If we get something and we do have time to look at it, we can look at it. If something falls between the cracks, we can alert them and alert DOB. But we're not gonna be reviewing whatever is gonna be submitted to us. We just wanna know the progress. And in the meantime, it's a very good idea to grant a short period during which we can follow up with DOB and make sure that things are smoothly moving. The submission of the protocol is not the end of the game here. A protocol is just a procedure that's gonna be followed. And then when this procedure is followed and testing results come out, they might need to do any further testing. They might need to do like a retrofit, any strengthening to structural elements. So all of that is up to DOB to follow up on and give them directions on how to navigate through this process to make sure that this building is gonna be safe and integral for the intended use.
Okay, right. Okay. And thank you. And Commissioner Shibeta.
I thank you, Chair. I agree with the Chair and Commissioner Shetta and the remaining commissioners. I think that this is the best way to move forward on this. I wish there was a way that we could know whether that protocol is going to be accepted. But I think with our compliance officer making the check-ins will be well informed at that point.
Right. Okay. So in terms of the receipt of whatever they submit to DOB, that could be voluminous, right? It could be, and so since we're not going to be reviewing it, I think just Ted's checking in every 2 months with Mr. King. Did you receive, what are they up to like that? Because we're not going to sign off on the protocol or the testing results or anything, right? That's what the forensics, Mr. King is with the forensics unit. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Shetta.
Yeah, Chair, for safety of the public, I'm requesting them to give us a copy of what they submit for information and write this on the submission for info only. And hopefully I'm gonna have some time to look at it. Remember, previously, this thing went to the DOB and they came to us to apply. And I believe if we haven't raised this from the beginning, it wouldn't be a protocol, it wouldn't be a procedural, it wouldn't be a follow-up. So hopefully I'm gonna have time to look at it. I know it's gonna be painful for me, but I don't wanna be like the hero and take the responsibility for nothing. But they need to submit them to us for info only, and hopefully you're gonna have time to look at it.
So
Okay, so-
what would happen? Here's my question. What would happen if DOB approves and we have an objection to safety? We'd be in a difficult position at that point. I don't think we would have the authority to.
DOB has the final determination on this. They have to make the final decision on this. But sometimes if you see something, say something, works.
Mhm.
Okay.
What I'd have to say is because we saw how thorough Mr. King is, that was
Yes,
a pretty
yes,
astonishing review
yes.
of the materials, right? So I have no concern that, for instance, if Commissioner Sheta saw something that was of concern in the submission, a conversation with Mr. King, if that's permitted.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. King would take it under consideration. Whether or not he agreed is a different thing, right? But he would listen, as opposed to some engineers where they don't want to hear it, right? So maybe it's an okay thing. What we could do is have them just submit it directly to Ted, because Ted is checking up on the progress. And that way, when he receives something, he could just let you know that we received a submission.
That's okay. That's a good idea.
Okay, Ted, you okay with that? Thumbs up. I think we lost Ted.
Sorry, I was on mute. Definitely, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay, so the instruction to the applicant will be that it goes to Ted Ricketts, all submissions. And so when this protocol is better organized for DOB submission to Mr. King, we should receive a copy of it. And and be great if we could have some sort of dialogue with Mr. King to make sure that what the status is, but you'll find out in like 2 months what that is. So, okay.
And our submission should say for info only, please.
Yes. Okay. Okay. All right then. So then this is the way we're going to go. So we just, does council need us to go through this again, or is that?
If you could just note the conditions again. So there's going to be a compliance hearing in 18 months. There's going to be ongoing follow-up in terms of submitting to the board's compliance officer, the protocols and all of that. And Ted, this isn't a condition, but the board's compliance officer will be following up with the Department of Buildings.
It's the forensics unit.
Yes.
Okay. Forensics unit. And then the general condition is structural stability of the building must be evaluated and certified to the satisfaction of DOB's forensics unit, and failure to comply would result in an earlier compliance hearing or revocation of the variance.
Okay.
Okay, great. So on that, a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Repeat that?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, 2019-280BZ, 137 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay. Drawings, so I was a little confused with the submission. Drawings were submitted, but they don't show the location of the acoustical curtains, which was actually the thing that was sort of holding this up. They just say acoustical curtains will be installed, but it doesn't say where. They were never able to find a real specification sheet. I went onto the website for this acoustical curtain manufacturer, and I find it very strange when you can't even find out what the fabric is. from the manufacturer. I actually also read bad reviews of it. Tony, do you want to say something?
You saw the submission I sent you yesterday?
Yesterday? There's
I
something,
emailed the submission yesterday,
isn't it the,
or it came in Saturday or Sunday from Jay Goldstein.
so you sent it yesterday? I didn't get anything yesterday.
Jay had some duplicates and he
I got community board from you and I got nothing.
It's an
the
amended table of
same curtain,
common
I believe.
plans, curtain photograph and submission notice.
Yesterday?
I emailed it. Jolene?
Yeah, he had some duplicates in the one, so you didn't not
Oh.
receive anything?
Saturday, no,
Yeah.
Friday.
Was it Friday?
Friday.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, Friday he submitted. And then on Saturday evening, he submitted omitting certain duplicates that we got the first time on Friday.
Right,
Okay.
they were like a double submission, sorry.
No, for one, I only see,
It's here.
no, I didn't see this. I don't know where it went. Okay, so the curtains are installed, but I do have to say, oh, so they're all on all 4 windows. Okay, or maybe they are. They're on 2 windows. There's 4 windows at the back, one of which is right. Yeah, is there another photo or that's it?
No, just
Oh,
one.
that's it. There was like 2 like that, but they're identical. They are in the document library on the bottom photograph.
Okay, it takes me too long to download it. Okay, all right. I don't know what to say. So it's not on the drawings. There's no indication on the drawings where those curtains are going to be. And what I'll say is, because I don't want to drag this on anymore. One of the reasons we didn't have an acoustical testing is because the studio is not in operation now, right? But it's been operating for 6 years, and that neighbor, now I understand better what the relationship is. The neighbor, her studio windows look directly into this studio. And so it's a direct line of sight for sound. And the issue had to do with music noise. So these curtains, which I've looked up on their own website, are really intended to prevent noise from coming into your place from like noisy street noise and stuff. It's not an acoustical barrier the other way. But in addition to which, I looked on Amazon and it got a lot of bad reviews. In other words, it doesn't do anything. So, and because you can't find out what the fabric is, it could just be like any kind of plastic. So who knows? Or not plastic, fabric. So anyway, what I wanted to say is we had said that there should be testing when things start up again. So I think that what should happen is a condition of approval should be that there should be testing done in the alleyway, because you don't need to go into the neighbor's studio. You could just, it's only on the 2nd floor, right? You could just mount a monitor, you could stand on a ladder or with a little extension thing and measure the sound readings a little bit higher up in the alley up against that building. And that should be enough to find out whether or not you need to limit the sound from the music, because they have sound limiters, but the sound limiters aren't set to anything. It just says we can limit it if we need to. Well, how will you know if you need to? So, so I think maybe that's my proposal, is a condition that sound testing must be done from the alleyway when gyms start up again.
Yeah.
Is that okay? So
Yeah,
based
For me.
Okay, so based on that, then a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay, the following items are deferred. Item number 11 and 12, 2017-16A through 2017-19A and 2018-105A. This is Clintonville Street, Clintonville Court, Queens.
Mhm. And
Item
also,
number,
go ahead. No, okay.
yeah, that's the both cases. Item number 13, 2020-72BZ, 85 J Street, Brooklyn. This is also requested to be deferred. Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Withdrawal, item number 14, 2019-182A, 1 Marina Road, Queens.
So that's being withdrawn after all that.
Mhm. Okay, SOC calendar, continued hearing items, item number 15.
I apologize. Don't you have to vote to withdraw this?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize. Thank you, Jella.
Yes, thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jella. Sorry, got ahead of ourselves. Motion to approve the withdrawal. Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta. Commissioner Shabeta, you're muted.
Sorry. Aye.
Okay, thank you. SOC calendar, continued hearing items, item number 15, 67753BZ, 6128 Fresh Meadow Lane, Queens.
We asked that the applicant notify neighbors about this upcoming hearing, which they did, and we received one letter in support. The cover letter and compliance chart goes through the conditions, but without backup and without signature. Who is attesting to this compliance? You can have a chart and say yes, no, but who's taking responsibility for the truth of the statement? We should have a notarized letter from the owner that they are using water-based paints, since the spray booth permit appears to allow oil-based or at least paint that produces VOCs. I'm not sure whether water-based paints produce VOCs. But that was one of the stipulations. And how would a lawyer know whether they're using oil-based paints? The owner has to attest to that. There's also an amusing explanation for why a tow truck was parked on the sidewalk. I don't know if anyone noticed that. It's parked on the sidewalk so that they could change the tire, and as soon as they change the tire, they stop parking on the sidewalk. Car repair of any type is not permitted on the sidewalk. So the idea that that was used as an excuse shows that you don't understand that the sidewalk is not available for business practices. If others unrelated to this establishment are parking on the sidewalk in front of the establishment, then we need an operational plan about how these owners will keep the sidewalk clear, including no parking tow zone signage, which we've seen in other locations. This should have been obvious to the applicant's representative. And I believe we asked for it at the last hearing to clarify the relationship between this site and the adjacent site. So this is where I get upset again, because why are we having to actually ask for this? This applicant's representative has been here before, should have listened to the tone of the prior hearings, and should have volunteered that. And we've been asking for the relationship between this site and the adjacent site since the beginning of this application. And before this particular application or this set of hearings and the ones before. Notably, one of the conditions to approval in years past was a fence between the two sites, which has not been complied with, and no written explanation was provided for that. It would have been simple enough if the applicant's counsel had bothered to do their work to explain that this condition was removed in 2018 and indicated on the resolution. But no, this board has to figure that out ourselves. This is the part where I start to get angrier and angrier as the day goes on, because I'm seeing one thing after the next like that, where the lawyers who work for the applicants don't do their work. We actually asked for several things we didn't get. So actually the submission was unresponsive. So for example, we said they need to describe how they mitigate the impacts on neighbors in the back. That was actually Commissioner Sheta's question. Body work is being performed in the rear adjacent to the residence. That was observed by site visits. And that they needed to provide plans as proposed versus previously approved. So lots and lots of issues with this, and I'm quite upset with the applicant's representative. And I hate it because the owner of the property shouldn't be penalized by poor representation. And this goes on and on and on. Okay, so Vice Chair Fondo.
Yeah, I have no additional comments to what you have stated.
Commissioner Brown?
I've noticed in the photos that were produced that there is a car with its hood up in the yard. And I just want to remind them that there should be no cars being worked on outdoors.
Yeah, and then this, and that's one of those things. Knowing that you can't have cars worked on outdoors, you submit a photo showing cars worked on outdoors, and you say nothing about it. That's called poor representation. Thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
I have nothing poorer to talk about.
Okay. Commissioner Shavetta.
I have nothing more to add, although I am glad that they submitted the photo with the car being worked on. Although I agree they should have made some sort of statement with regard to that.
Okay. All right.
Move on. Item number 16, 33279 BZ, 4320 Little Neck Parkway, Queens.
Okay. At the last hearing, we met with the owner and discussed how to move forward on making improvements to the site in light of the economic crisis and the fact that this is an extremely large site where any kind of repairs cost huge amounts of money. As I believe it's a woman, as she did the last time, as she did the last time, the owner should attend this hearing. We received documentation that the dry well and drain installation work was completed late last year, and that the owner has received estimates for further improvements of the lot. The photos are not very descriptive of the work done. In fact, it just shows one drain, what do you call, a leader and a gutter. I don't know how that's explaining drain work and dry well installation. But anyway, they're not, and that information should be shown on the site plan also. So I didn't see what it was what the improvements were on a site plan. An architect was retained to handle the dry wells. So there must be approved drawings for that, and that should have been submitted to us. And in August, following the last hearing, our project manager forwarded to Owners Council contact information for the New York City Small Business Services out of concern that this owner was really suffering. So I hope the owner reached out to them and they were able to provide some assistance. And I hope the owner also was able to obtain federal PPP loans that I'm aware can be quite helpful to struggling businesses at this time. And however, I do want to remind, because that was something we focused on, the difficulty of accomplishing these tasks, but applicants' counsel has to be reminded that they have a job to do actually on this and not just sit back and watch. At the first hearing on this application over 2 years ago, we had many questions that have still not been answered and need to be. And so again, frustration with the idea that council is not doing its work. So I am going to go through the notes that we had on my notes from commissioner statements also from December 4th, 2018 that have never been responded to, and that's the job of counsel, applicant counsel. So community board had recommended a conditional approval, and which included, and which we didn't disagree with, no storage of vehicles unless related to the uses on the site, including overnight, proper drainage to collect water ponding, which of course they're dealing with now, repave and stripe the lot, which I believe they're getting estimates for, location of waste dumpsters not to be placed in accessory parking spaces. We don't know because we've never gotten an updated site plan. Access to the lot to be gated and closed when retail stores are closed. Again, never got an updated site plan. This is old comments, right? Photos show fencing and asphalt in need of repair, absence of required striping, and landscaping in need of maintenance. If such maintenance and striping is a condition of the grant, then why does the compliance certificate not mention that it is out of compliance? So even back then, there were statements made that needed to be corrected. Why are there dumpsters on the lot at all? This is basically a gigantic parking lot. Provide photos showing all perimeter conditions and key them to the plan. We never got those. Proposed plans need to look the same as the approved plans with the same dimensions and notes. Proposed show that landscaping buffer zones have been reduced and there are no notations required fencing. We never got that. What is the lighting situation on the site? I have a note from Commissioner Otley Brown. In the proposed plans, the parking spaces cut across the previously approved drive aisle. So now the parking spaces line up with the curb cut. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Commissioner Shanda said, what is the quote curb cut to be filed separately note about? Also, what are the hours of operation? How will the lot be secured? Again, question about the ponding. The trash receptacle needs to be in an enclosure. Landscaping on the southern side has to be provided. 2 existing street trees in poor condition. And they should add 4 to 5 more trees, assuming 25 feet on center. Fencing on Little Neck can be improved and can match with other fencing, which has PVC fencing with green stripping. I don't know how you do that with PVC fencing, but maybe it does. Commissioner Shabeta says that they have a contract with City MD. I don't know if that's still the case, but they didn't provide any proof of their accessory uses. They need to establish this is an accessory use, right? That this parking lot is an accessory use to the principal uses, right? At that time, there was a trailer for an 18-wheeler and a construction truck on the site and storage of dead cars, none of which is permitted. And then Commissioner Shetta was discussing the water ponding. So at least they're responding to that question about drainage. And we needed a restrictive declaration binding the relationship between lots 64, 65, and 44, which is the principal use to which this parking is accessory. So we didn't get any of that. So it's just a reminder that you can't just sit back and wait for someone else to do other work, okay? So I go to Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you for outlining all the outstanding questions that the applicant has to respond to. Though I'm glad to see that progress is being made and that the applicant has shown commitment to improve the site in the midst of this economic hardship that has been caused. So yeah, I hope in the next submission, the applicant can respond to all the outstanding questions.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
I have no additional comments to both of yours.
Commissioner Shetta.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you that the response this time is not even like providing any evidence of the work that's claimed to be done. I'm not saying that work is not done, but if I'm telling somebody that I have scratched my head and here is a picture for that. I shouldn't give him a picture for my feet. Simple. So if they are saying that we installed a dry well, we should get a picture for the dry well installation. It doesn't take like a hard effort to provide that. It's a shot. Probably 1 minute would give us like 5 pictures for the installation of that dry well. And the pictures submitted, I didn't see any dry well. I didn't see any installation. That's simple. And relating the rest of the work to, so the kind of picture that's provided makes me skeptical. And I'm a skeptical guy by nature. And that's how most of engineers, especially structural and geotech, I count my fingers like every 5 minutes. So you gave me a picture that says nothing. So, and then you're claiming that everything on that site, every single piece of work you want to commands relates to the dry well. Why? What is the relation between resurfacing, and I'm going to go extreme, resurfacing and the dry well installation? The dry well installation area, probably it's like 50 feet by 50 feet. You could retain that. And this is a huge site. And then do the rest of the site, resurface the rest of the site. Do any other work you need to do, lighting, curves, whatever. There is no real relation. You do not need to hold everything else until you finish the dry well installation. So even this kind of language makes me like not happy with the submission and with the progress of the work in totality. And I'm hoping that they're gonna respond to that.
I mean, I think the thing that we learned at the last hearing was that obviously no tenants are paying rent, which is why I had our project manager forward to the applicant's council information about small business services and the PPP loans and so on that would offset some of the pain. So I understand why maybe some improvements don't happen, because we saw potentially the cost to do the resurfacing. It's a lot of money. So I understand that, but it's not like they cannot do it. They have to do it. Right, but okay, Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. All I want to add is that this has been 6 months, and while some of these delays are certainly due to COVID, there should have been more responses to our questions. Some of the things were really nominal, like, do you still have an agreement? Let's see the agreement to the accessory use, something like that. I was expecting responses to those, and unfortunately I didn't receive them.
Probably just for some people to understand why I'm like upset. A dry well is like a concrete barrel that might be 10 feet diameter. And to install this, you have to dig into ground, put a layer of whatever stones, and then put this guy in, center it, and put crushed stone around it, and then connect sewers to it. It's not that guy that they sent a picture for. So if you're telling me that you installed a dry well and you're giving me this, I don't know, prove it to me.
No, that's different. I agree with you. All they installed was maybe a downspout. Not even sure they installed a downspout because it looks old. Okay. All right, let's move on.
Item number 17, 11407BZ, 7-05, 152nd Street, Queens.
Okay. Most of our requests were responded to. Fences at the play areas are not shown on the elevations as requested, however. They need to be added. Also, there's no fence shown at all on the plans at the first floor side play yard which is directly adjacent to a residence. And then I finally understood how adjacent to a resident it is. It's also that same fence is not indicated on the elevations. We received a tech memo that discusses many issues, but in particular, it's looking at the noise impacts of the outdoor play yards that were never considered in the prior applications. The tech memo states that a 6-foot fence is shown on the plans, but as I say, it isn't. The tech memo concludes that no amount of fencing will eliminate the impacts to the adjacent residential windows, and proposes instead to purchase what we've learned about recently in another application we just heard today, acoustical curtains for that residential property. I know how much they cost, $139 each. That means that during school days, the tenant of the residential property must sit in total darkness, because on Amazon, they say it isn't good for acoustical purposes, but they're great blackout curtains. So I don't understand what size fence they're saying you can't build under for zoning purposes. They said the tallest fence that's permitted under zoning. I don't know which fence they're talking about is permitted under zoning, and play yards have sort of different rules than neighbor fences. So I'm not sure what height they're talking about, but it's my feeling on this is that unless the neighbor agrees to this imposition on their lives, which I personally would never agree to, blackout during the day, or agrees to the installation of more expensive, what are like there are this special type of triple glazing city silence windows, which per force means a closed window condition in the spring when everyone's playing, right? Maybe in the summer you're closing it because you use air conditioning, but it means you can't open your windows even in the spring. For me, that means there should be no play area on that side of the building, because when you look at how many windows are affected, it's all the backyard windows of that house and the side yard windows. So effectively, the entirety of the apartment on the second floor would have to have blackout curtains. I can't even believe that this was suggested by the acoustical or the tech person, the engineer. The side yard is actually already being used as a play area based on the photos. So the noise impact should be known and not need to be modeled, since once outdoor play and school activity begins again, and the neighbors already know what it's like to live next door to this. So really, I guess they need to engage with the neighbors. But it's actually shocking to me. There's this incredible photo standing in that side yard looking at all of those windows. It means if I can see it, they can hear it. And it's the entire house that is subject to high decibel levels from little kids in the play yard. We're also waiting for seeker sign off and DEP review of the tech memo, in particular, of course, of the noise impacts. And we're also expecting a fire department sign off. I believe they said they would be issuing an LNO, but we didn't receive it as far as I know. Okay. So those are my comments. Let's see.
As well.
Also we have open seeker. We have obviously open noise
And DOT.
Yeah, got it. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
My position with this one is that this was something that was granted by the prior board, and what I would like to know, since this school has been in operation, though maybe not for the last few months during the pandemic, what has been the neighbors' response to the condition? And it would be good for us to know where the neighbor stands with regards to this. The play area has been in operation for a long time. So it would be good to know from the neighbors in terms of what their concerns are. And while the current fence doesn't quite do it, but maybe some kind of acoustical measure added to it can reduce it. I recognize that this will not address the sound that would go straight to the second floor, because the sound is also, it's like a conical thing. So, and I definitely am not going to suggest having a tall 20-foot high acoustical wall that will block it, because that will block the light and air of the neighbor. I think it would be helpful for the applicant to also indicate how often the play area is used, what are the hours, and what are those duration when the play area generates that noise. And because otherwise the documents are not very clear in terms of how frequently, how often, how long one would have to endure the noise emanating from this play area. So those would be helpful also in terms of information and engaging the applicant. I wasn't quite sure about the acoustical curtain, maybe more of a window treatment that may help the situation. So anyway, those are just my comments.
Commissioner Brown.
I echo the comment of the vice chair about reaching out to the neighbor to find out how they're experiencing the usage of that side yard as a play area. And then my next question would be, is it possible they could actually do away with using that side yard now that they have both rooftop play yards and use those solely?
Right, and those yards don't seem to present a problem because the fencing does work on those. Right. Right, Commissioner Shetto.
I'm not like in the favor of expanding play areas on that side unless they make it clear that no negative impact on the neighbors is going to be encountered. And I believe this could be like demonstrated by two things: either going back to the neighbors and get their feedback, or perform a testing. Other than that, I believe it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Commissioner Shabeta.
I agree with the statements made by my colleagues. I have nothing more to add.
Okay. So just to clarify though, the expansion in terms of the application is the third floor roof, which they didn't have before, but they had never submitted a noise analysis of the play area at grade before in the prior review. So this is the first time that the board is looking at the noise impacts from any of the play areas, including the ones that were approved previously. So yeah, okay. Okay. Oh, in terms
Next
of
item is, oh, sorry.
yeah, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Item number 18, 12013 BZ, 1815 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. This is still a review session.
There is a discussion in the cover letter about how a 15-foot high acoustical barrier will be installed forward of the property line to allow the planting of a dense buffer of evergreens to be located between the property line and the barrier. So in other words, that the fence would be on the inside setback, however many feet, say 5 feet back, so that you could get vegetation on the neighbor's side of the barrier. But the plans don't show that. Why should they? Pardon my ongoing irony and sarcasm. They show the fence on the property line and the trees on the inside of it. And only section CC on BSA 4.1 shows it the correct way. But the drawings just don't reflect what's said, what's agreed. There are photos showing the arbor vitae installed on the inside of the property in front of a chain link fence that looks like it's 5 or 6 feet high. No photo key was provided, so it isn't clear where this is. Bollards and chains are shown on only one plan, BSA 05, not on the main site plan, BSA 2.2. That's where they should be shown. So they need to be shown on the main site plan, and be sure to provide an attachment for the chains on both sides. So they show a bollard on one side and then nothing to receive it on the other side. So it's kind of sky hooks. I mean, it's just sloppiness. They also, this is an ongoing theme with me, the trash enclosure now moved away from the neighbors, has the doors facing the street. So all the public gets to walk by the trash enclosure doors that are swung open, no doubt. The doors should face the building. And so that way it encourages the operators to maintain the enclosure with the doors closed. So turn the doors the other way around. The photos of the drive-through hour signs posted on the menu board are provided, but I didn't see signs. Maybe they gave us photos someplace else that show lower, turn off your radio. That may be in another set of photos. I just can't remember. I'm kind of confusing different applications, but we need to see those signs also. An air quality monitoring protocol was provided that we will have DEP look at. There's a revised noise study that indicates the 6-foot barrier between the subject site and the houses on Hudson Place will not be adequate to block the noise to the second floor. So why would you propose then a 6-foot barrier? So I don't understand why a higher barrier is not being proposed there. It's so strange. I understand that the owner of the residence located immediately adjacent to the parking area that has its sort of sidewall right up against the parking area does not want a high fence blocking light and air to the second story window. That area, though, should be heavily landscaped with arborvitae, because at least then they're looking out at shrubbery and not a wall. The landscaping plans, BSA 03 and 04, don't specify the number and spacing of trees and shrubs. I'm confused after all of this time not to see that. Again, I'm trying to be calm, but I'm very angry because it's incredible to have to ask for these things after so many hearings when this applicant's representative knows what we expect to see. They need to submit a complete set of drawings. The submission is missing drawings 7 to 11. And again, this applicant's counsel knows that we expect to see a complete set of drawings and didn't submit it. And by the way, project managers never accept a submission that doesn't have a complete set of drawings. And, you know, notes to project managers, all of these kinds of comments are things we should be seeing in the submissions. So, so pay attention to what to these comments and reject submissions that are not responsive. Okay, Commissioner Shonda, Vice Chair Shonda.
I'm satisfied with the submission that has been made thus far. I think the letter from the 508 Morningside Road, I understand their concern, and I agree that more buffering along that frontage should be considered. With regards to turning the doorway from the street side to the interior, I think it's a question of how that affects maneuvering of the trucks and also number of vehicular parking spaces, because that would result in elimination of some parking spaces.
No, for one, that's their job to figure out, but it wouldn't, because it's only when the doors are open that you have to worry about it. They only bring things out to the enclosures at the end of the day. So it's not that the doors are in an open position all the time. They're closed, and then you can park cars in front of it. That's how all these trash things work. where they're at parking spaces, just like on the other side, it's right at a parking space.
Okay, I really have
But
no
it-
comment on it.
have to be
It should be a matter of whether it's maneuverable or not and that. Okay, all right.
Okay. Commissioner Allen Brown,
I have no additional questions.
Commissioner Sheta,
I have nothing additional to add.
Commissioner Shabeta.
All I add is that I hope we can hear from the community at the hearing to see if there's any, if they've seen these plans and how they, their thoughts on them.
Yes, we didn't get any submissions from them, so, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Next item is new cases. Item number 19, 37845 BZ, 11660 Supton Boulevard, Queens. This is still a review session.
Okay, we approve a service of initial application and of notice of hearing to officials. Community Board recommends denial due to non-compliance, with 6 opposed to the denial and 2 abstentions. We also have a letter in support from Councilmember Abrams, who seems to have been misinformed that this application is in compliance with the variance. It isn't. This is a legalization for significant work done without BSA approval. Based on the last approved plans dating to 1971, this site has not been in compliance with the terms of the grant for a long time, since the rear portion of the site that fronts on 148th Street was supposed to have been left unimproved, since it was in an R32 zoning district until somewhere around 2010. Instead, that area appears to have been used for parking. I don't know since when, but it wasn't allowed to be until the zoning change in 2010. And probably never would have been allowed to be because it was parking accessory to this use, which was not a permitted use. Now that portion of the lot is in a C23, however, so commercial use would be permitted as of right. But the proposal is a store with a drive-through. So I looked everywhere in the zoning resolution, and this is Carlo, are you listening? I looked everywhere in the zoning resolution. Good. And this is a gas station, or sort of an automotive repair and gas station, where they're proposing to install a convenience store with drive-through in a C23. I looked everywhere in the zoning resolution and I cannot find a single as of right drive-through that's associated with a convenience store or a store. I only see drive-throughs associated with eating and drinking and banks. That's all I can find. So, and I do note, and I seem to remember sort of the voice of Carlo way back then saying, "Are you sure?" And I didn't understand the ramifications. In 2016, under calendar number 271-15BZ, in a C21, this board approved a drive-through for a convenience store in association with a 73-211 special permit for a gas station, but I frankly don't know under what authority. So I need applicant's counsel to explain under what authority could we even consider a drive-through for a convenience store. This is not a variance application, right? In this case, no, sorry, this is a variance application, but you'd have to make a case for why you need that additional waiver. Yeah. So, and I'm not clear if the building has already been converted to a convenience store with drive-through, so that's a site visit question. There are 3 vacuums installed at the site, at least they're away from residences along the shared commercial lot line. We do have a fire department letter of no objection. This is a very large lot, and if the drive-through were permitted, it seems as if with the right configuration, there would be room to accomplish what's proposed. But once again, like every drive-through we see that's in a residence district or adjacent to one, all of the pressure is being put on the adjoining residents to deal with the drive-by lane, the drive-through, the trash, everything. So The menu board and trash enclosure are exactly at the, exactly there at the residential property lines. So for me to consider the drive-through, the site plan would have to be completely redone and create a very deep buffer away from the residential lot line and from 148th Street, which is also residential property across the street. And we would need a traffic study. And in the photos anyway, the 148th Street frontage is in terrible condition with collapsed plywood fencing haphazardly painted, which faces residences, and should be replaced with metal picket, and landscaped behind, and not with chain link fence. So I know that the proposal is to landscape that area, but it should be metal picket because this is a residential district that it is directly opposite. And the lumen spread diagram shows it's higher than 0 over the residential property line, and it can't be. And I think those were my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. Yeah, so when I was reviewing it, my first question was, since the underlying zoning permits eating and drinking establishment with accessory drive-through facility use group 6, why is this being treated as an accessory use? Why isn't this like a standalone, a separate use? Like you could have 2 uses, the use that was granted and you seek the variance for that. And the other one is the as of right use, the eating and drinking with you, eating and drinking with an accessory drive-through. And the comment is related to how would it be listed in the CO? Would it be designated as, would the convenience store be designated as use group 16E or use group 6? So that was one question. Then also just a minor thing. The floor area calculation would increase with the increase in some floor area increase that's being shown with the pickup window. So they need to be careful when they say there's no increase in any floor area. With regards to the entire design, I agree with most of the comments Madam Chair, you have stated. The fence along 148th Street, I agree it's in very poor condition, and also it encroaches. Currently the fence encroaches onto the city sidewalk, and I believe in their revised plan they're proposing to move the fence back to where the property line is and provide street trees right against the fence, which I'm not sure is the standard that DOT allows. DOT only puts street trees along the curb line, not along the property line. So they need to consult DOT street parking regulations and revise the plan accordingly. And I do agree that any of the landscaping should be within the property and not rely on just DOT street trees to provide any buffering. And again, fence should be more in keeping with the character of the residential use, and so it should not be a chain link fence. So my question again is, they need to provide more clarification as to what is before the board. As I said, the prior BSA approval was to allow use group 6 auto repair and gasoline service. Since the applicant is proposing to convert the auto repair service to an as of right use with an as of right drive-through, the alteration proposed that requires DOB approval is it the gasoline station and the activities related to it. And this was a question I really have for our executive director with regards to where the special permit is being applied. Is it being applied to the eating and drinking establishment? Because use group 6.
Yeah,
Stop.
if I may, Madam Chair.
I just need to slow down a second. This is a variance that is being amended, right? It's a 1945 variance for a lubricatorium and auto laundry at an existing gas station, which was last amended in 1971. So it's not a special permit. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, unless there's information that you saw that I didn't see, this is a convenience store, not an eating and drinking establishment. And a convenience store is a different kind, is a retail use group 6, but not one that allows a drive-in. So that's.
My point is, Madam Chair, is that, as you pointed out, convenience retail store is use group 6, and so is eating drinking establishment with a drive-through use group 6. They are both permitted as of right in this zoning district. So, so I just need more clarification, direction from our executive director in terms of, I understand there was a variance on this side to allow a gasoline service station. Now we have a use that is not permitted as of right, and then uses that are permitted as of right. So how is the variance going to be treated in this case, and what are we reviewing? So that is the clarity that I'm seeking.
But this isn't eating and drinking, unless they change their application. It's a store that sells stuff. Eating and drinking is a place where you go and they make the food and you buy it, like a McDonald's, right? This is a store that sells stuff where you buy soda and you chips.
I have to say, I mean, we do allow, I mean, there are eating and drinking establishments where all you're doing is heating up something in the microwave and putting it, and that is also considered eating and drinking. There are a lot of as of right eating and drinking like that. So I'm not sure how much of fine tuning we're getting into it. I see this as an as of right use, eating and drinking with a drive-through. So you can go there, pick up your eating and drinking, walk in, go there, pick it up, go out. I could stand there, eat, pick it up, or I can drive in and pick it up. It's eating and drinking establishment. I don't think the zoning specific says you have to sit there and eat to prove it that it is an eating and drinking establishment.
I'm going to move around the room, but Carlo has his hand
I
up.
have actually some questions. I do have comments on it. So the gasoline service station, in terms of the hours of operation, the applicant stated the gasoline service station is 24/7. I would like to know what the proposed hours for the convenience store and the drive-through. In terms of the lumen count, I agree, it should be 0. The signage, they need to include all the signage of the building. The maneuvering plan, there are a lot of concerns I have with regards to the maneuvering plan, because the curb cut that is to the extreme northern side is providing not only for the drive-through, but also for to enter the last gasoline pump that is there, which is going to create backup. There has to be a different treatment or relocate the curb cut from that intersection. And there should be additional parking for vehicles along the building facing Falk Avenue, because if there are vehicles wanting to go to the convenience store after they have picked up, after they have filled their gasoline, or they don't want to be part of the drive-through, but they want to go to just to the convenience store, I do not see how this current maneuverability plan will encourage someone to go all the way, park in the back, and then walk through to the building. So it is going to result in more illegal parking around the area. So instead of to prevent that from happening, they should actually reconsider the reconfiguration of the parking location and provide some that are much closer to the building and eliminate the need for illegal parking within the site. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Carlo, I'm going to go around the room first, and then Commissioner Ali Brown.
I'd like to know what drive-through this is for, what type of restaurant, and what would be the hours of the drive-through in connection with that. Let's see, the signage needs to be broken down by frontage. The lighting seems to be higher than 0.0 at the residential lot line. The reservoir spaces, it says there are 10 reservoir spaces, but only 9 from the drive-through to the lot line. There's one in front of that, and that doesn't count. Required parking, they say they'll provide 11 parking spaces. I only see 10 parking spaces. in answer to the character of the neighborhood being substantially oriented towards the motor vehicle. The area is surrounded by commercial uses, they say, but how does that alone justify this finding? They don't say that. And they haven't shown whether or not the drive-through will have a negative impact on the surrounding residences. And then in terms of the landscaping along the residential lot lines, it seems like there's only grass lawn area adjacent to the residences, and that's not good. Those are my comments, quickly as possible.
Thank you. I have a question. You said about the reservoir spaces, there's only 9 between the what and the what?
Between the drive-through window and the lot line. So you should count them from the drive-through window, not the end of the lane, which goes past the drive-through window.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to appear repetitive. I do have issues with the lighting. I do have issues with the drive-through. It's very close to residential, so I'm not sure if that site kind of like can be reconfigured to avoid driving through that very adjacent to the residential. I have issues or concerns regarding noise. And in addition to that, I believe the trash enclosure should be relocated and somehow to avoid being close to residential. And I'm willing to listen to them why these items cannot be achieved if we can.
Well, or another way of looking at it is just do it. Don't tell us why you can't. I never like to open it up because then the response will be why they can't do it. Commissioner Shibeta.
Thank you, Chair. So arguably the convenience store is a nicer use to have adjacent to a residence than a Ubertorium, I believe they called it. In that, I think that's a positive. Although the site is in such poor condition, I'm not sure if a drive-through here, with people have such little regard for the neighbors, whether a drive-through might be appropriate. I think that the community board, I'm not sure if this was mentioned, voted against it, and I'd like to know why, what their reasoning behind it was, because I couldn't find that. I also a question more internally. Was this noticed to the neighbors?
Let's see. It was no. So we should notice neighbors.
I would suggest we notice neighbors because they're going to be receiving the greatest brunt of the drive-through. I agree with the chair that I think that at best a reconfiguration where the residents aren't going to be the burden of the drive-through is imperative.
Right. Okay.
The only other thing is I think we need a little more explanation on sound and lighting. I'm not sure what the impact is going to be on the neighbors. They sent in the sound, the information with regard to their menu board, but I don't think it's not really sufficient. I didn't see the hours of the convenience store, and as Commissioner Otley Brown stated, what kind of convenience store is this? Is this going to be a convenience store in fact, or is it going to be a fast food? What are we looking at here? So a little more information on what exactly you're planning to put here, because I think there is a difference of buying car items and buying a drink from a window.
Okay. Okay. There is a difference between a market, a retail market, and an eating and drinking establishment. Sorry, there's two different things in the zoning resolution. I would say that's a DOB call, if anything. I don't want to make that call. So, Carlo, thank you. Carlo?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think what Vice Chair was asking, I'd like to maybe set it up a little bit to discuss. So currently, the way the application is framed and the way it's been since the 40s is that the uses in the building have been accessory to the automotive, part of the automotive service station, use group 16B. Under the accessory definitions, under 1210 for automotive service station, it describes certain permitted uses: lubricatorium, work with minor hand tools, occasional washing of vehicles, no public parking, and so forth. I think, if the board is to entertain this as an independent use group 6, the building, in other words, consider the reduction of the variance to limit it only to the sale of the petroleums, and then the building would have to be as a right in the C2, then I agree with Madam Chair. What you suggested is that it may be a DOB call. And again, that's something that the board has to think about. But, as far as us deciding of what is an accessory to an accessory, or a standalone use, that's something that should be thought about moving forward. If the board is to accept the drive-through. Again, I don't know, I'm not that familiar with what's being proposed here. Like a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, as a standalone use, could have a drive-through in a C2 district, but again, the board has to consider its authority and jurisdiction and what it would be willing to relinquish as far as its authority, and just focus on either the automotive sales, and everything else would have to be as a right and under DOB jurisdiction.
Right, okay, but so the application definitely was not framed that way, so it was as an accessory convenience store and described that way as being less than the required floor area under the TPPN, et cetera, right?
Right, the TPPN doesn't really go into, there's really no place where there's a discussion of drive-through with regards to accessory uses for automotive service stations that I'm aware of. Neither in the TPPN or the 1210 definition under automotive service station, or I believe maybe under Article 3 or 4 that deals with automotive uses. There is never, that I'm aware of, any discussion. I think Madam Vice Chair, which is suggesting is, if they were to consider the building as an as a right use, independent of the use group 16B, perhaps that's something that a path to permit this. But again, that would have to, we don't know how the Department of Buildings then will interpret, the use, what the use is as proposed in the building, as far as whether it's a convenience type store or an eating and drinking establishment, and what then entitles a drive-through as an accessory to that use.
Right. So that would be totally a DOB call.
Yeah, I mean, that could possibly offer the path, right? Because I know this is something that's, I guess, becoming a little more sought after, is drive-throughs through these convenience stores. But again, if we were strictly in a residential district where mainly we see a lot of these 11-4-1 type of applications, the possibility of considering an as a right use is not there. But this, subsequent to our approval, at some point, this district became a C2. They also would have the applicability of perhaps a 73-11 special permit, on this site. And again, not knowing what that would permit them, if they met the criteria on the 73-11. But that's, again, there's some flexibility on a site like this because it's in a C2 district.
Right, 73-11. Sorry, that's either board may permit service stations. That's, you mean, in other words, give up the variance and go to a special permit? Is that what you mean for the gasoline service station?
Yeah, I was just saying it more hypothetical because, like I said, the majority of the types of these pre-61 automotive service stations typically tend to be in, let's say, a residential district. This
Right.
particular site has a little bit of a benefit because it's in a C2. It still
Yeah.
afforded the grandfathering under a pre-61 under 1141, right? But it also may have available to it a 73 to 11. Perhaps that could offer more flexibility in considering whether just the petroleum sales are under the board's purview and anything else on the zoning lot could be developed as a right. But
So in other words, you take the entire, so the entire zoning lot was the subject of the variance
yes,
in 1945, and that section in the R district was just considered vacant. And then what you're suggesting is if they just treated the site as an as-of-right site, and then a 73 to 11 for a gas station, basically gas service station, with no automotive activities at all except pumping, right? And vacuums and that kind of stuff. Then everything else on the site would just be as of right. So it's sort of the old fashioned sort of general store with pumping station that, you see in the countryside.
right. And I think the question then has to be whatever the as of right uses are, the Department of Buildings then could give consideration as to whether it meets the criteria of having an accessory drive-through or not.
Right. So
Again, I'm just trying to offer a few pats. I'm doing this on the fly, so I'm sorry. It's not maybe, I'm kind of improvising a little bit, but I'm just trying to think of, in response to what Madam Vice Chair was suggesting. I appreciate what she said about the as a right uses. It could be that the board could consider, even under the pre-61, under 1141, just reducing the scope of the variance, limiting to the gasoline sales, and then the building, whether it's a non-complying building, but can convert to an as of right use under the zoning, which it's a C2. And again, the discussion of then an as of right accessory drive-through wouldn't be before us.
Right. But so that what's tricky about that is the layout of the pumps and what our purview is, right? At where's the boundary line from what we look at and access to the pumps versus, because there's also the underground storage tanks. There's stuff on the site that's specifically related to the gas station. And versus the stuff that's related to an as of right use. So if we were to parse the zoning lot into different parts for variance, it's a little tricky. So the special permit might be better at that.
I mean, I've seen in the past, like I said, I've seen in the past these like, multiple uses, for example, on a site, like a gas station site, like maybe they had like auto sales or something, but it was in a district, like a C2 district where auto sales is permitted, for example. Very rare. I just don't think maybe the zoning contemplated this evolution of convenience stores with now their own accessory uses. I think it's just, hasn't caught up to maybe the trend.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Vice Chair Shonda has her hand up.
I think for me, the confusing part was that, yes, I saw the TPPN, and then at the same time throughout the text, the applicant kept referring to it and as of right use. So that's why I raised that question and a clarification. And I appreciate our executive director's feedback. I think there are many parts to it. I think the clarification really needs to come from the applicant and how DOB deals with it and how do we want to set a precedence on such cases.
You're muted.
Madam Chair, you're muted. I'm sorry. I muted you by accident. I meant to mute myself.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's 10 minutes to noon. I'm thinking maybe we take a 10-minute break now and then move into the hearing. Okay. So back at noon for the actual hearing on this morning session, called morning. Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, everyone, please come back. Okay, I think we have everyone. I don't see. Ms. Rotley Brown, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are we live?
Yes.
Not yet.
Okay.
Ready? Can we
Yes.
go?
Mhm.
Okay, we are now commencing. This is the public hearing for February 22nd, 2021. This is still the 10 a.m. session. The Zoom webinar ID number is 934-5509-6525. Pass telephone number is 646-558-8656 should you wish to call in when the public is available. The first item is continued hearing item 16-67753BZ 6128 Fresh Meadow Lane, Queens.
Hello,
Hi, state your name.
Joseph Gayon with Ackerman on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, let me swear you in. Okay,
Mhm.
raise your right. Do you have anyone else with you?
Just me.
Okay. Do you affirm, raise your right hand, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Please proceed.
Well, now it's good afternoon, Chair, board members. I just want to provide a couple of clarifications, and I have a couple additional questions to ask of you, so we can get some additional clarity on, what you would like to see in the next submission. Previously, in the extension of term application, the applicant's materials addressed the automotive repair shop located on lot 52. And in the approved plans, it shows that it's not part of this application. And with respect to we submitted the approved plans, but for SOC applications, proposed plans are not required unless there's an amendment. So I just would like some additional clarification as to what additional plans that you would like to see for this extension of time to obtain a certificate of occupancy.
So what we're trying to do always is to make sure that you're in compliance with the terms of the grant, no matter
Sure.
what, right? So that's what we're looking for, demonstration of compliance with the terms of the grant, right? And there were some pretty significant issues, the main one being the water-based paint versus oil paint, right? Most of the comments were really about the compliance question and the response to the compliance questions, which were odd responses. Like, we're not really parking on the sidewalk except when we change tires. Oops. Right.
Mhm.
I mean,
Understood, Chair. You asked, I believe, for something signed and notarized. Was that just with respect to the water-based paint comment, or was that for the whole entire condition compliance chart?
No, so, well, yes, so when you have a chart and no one takes responsibility for it, you could say whatever you want,
Sure.
right?
I mean,
Whoever is answering the question, they're attesting to the veracity of that statement. Who's doing that?
Understood, Chair. We did submit the certificate of inspection and compliance, which is signed and sealed by the architect, and they certify that. And then we sign at the bottom of the application that everything that we submitted was true. So I'm just trying to answer, just trying to provide you what you would like.
Okay, so the chart, so when we review these documents, they all get separated from each other. So the chart is actually a standalone thing with no appellation, nothing. There's no heading, there's no signature, nothing. Each document needs to be certified as to its veracity, which is why we have those confirmation, the certification cover letters, right? Where the architect certifies that the plans are accurate, et cetera, right?
Okay.
So that's what we want is compliance chart, but then each thing in the compliance chart has to provide something that supports the argument that this is being provided. You don't just say, yeah, we're doing it if there isn't any support for, yeah, we're doing it, right?
Okay, we will provide additional information. And that you said you didn't know if water-based paints emitted VOCs, and it's my understanding that they do as well, but I can provide some additional information on that.
Okay, so, but that's not really the issue. The issue is that the permit allows for paint that emits VOCs, but the resolution specifically disallows oil-based paint. So
Understood. I believe water-based paint emits VOCs as well, but I can give you some additional information on that.
No, we don't need, that's not the thing that's critical. The issue is oil-based paint. Is it being used or isn't it being used on site? Because it's not permitted to be used on site. And only the owner would be able to attest to that.
So we'll provide you additional information on that. And then one other thing, you asked about the fence, and then we can update the condition compliance chart. In 2018, the fence was removed, and we can update our filing to show that it was removed as a condition. And that was part of the previous amendment to the application. And
so for future use, for future applications, don't leave the guesswork us to fill out to answer the questions that we have. Tell the story of the site, and where do we learn the story? Usually from the resolution. So tell the story. What does it say in the resolution is the history of the site? Why aren't we seeing a fence that was a condition of prior approval? I mean, you know, those kinds of things would eliminate the need for another hearing to answer ultimately obvious questions. Okay, this is like a learning thing since you don't appear before us often. I don't know if I've ever seen you appear before us.
Understood, Chair. And I think the last outstanding thing is I did not understand your comment about the plans. What other types of, you want to see that like as-built drawings or what's, I'm just a little confused as to what you want to see.
I'm just looking at my notes. One of the conditions was a fence between. We needed to, I don't see a note about the plans. I see, produce plan, it was plans proposed versus previously approved. So if there's any changes to what was previously approved, we need to see that. If nothing was changed, that's different.
There's nothing changed.
Okay, so you need to say that there's no change to the previously approved drawings.
No problem.
Okay. And but there was a question to describe how you're proposing to mitigate the impacts on neighbors in the back. And because a site visit observed body work in the rear, being done in the rear.
Okay, we will address that.
Okay, in fact, body work's not allowed to be done in the rear, right? No open repair is permitted on the site. So if there's body work being done on the rear, then we need an operational plan to explain how you're going to prevent any activity, any work from being done on site outside of the building and again on the sidewalk.
Okay, understood, Chair.
And Commissioner Ollie Brown observed a car with a hood up in the yard, for example, right, just now, whereas this was an earlier comment from another commissioner. Okay, so in
Okay.
other words, it's ongoing this problem. And well, let's see. Okay, and so then parking on sidewalk. Okay, and then again, the normal way for dealing with no parking on the sidewalk is to install signs that say
Sure.
no parking on the sidewalk, violators of the code. That should be installed now, and we should see photos of it. Okay, I think that's it. Did I leave anything out, anybody?
The impacts on the neighbors, how they
Right.
mitigate them, how they deal with the impact.
Yes, which is what we talked about before. You can't have any work going on outside. So that we need an operational plan, okay? So, okay,
Understood.
so let's public.
The application we are currently discussing is 67753BZ 6128 Fresh Meadows Lane, Queens. If you wish to call in, it is 646-558-8656. The Zoom webinar ID number is 934-5509-6525. Passcode is 910475. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand.
Okay.
Somebody raise
What?
their hand.
No, I'm just.
Jella has a
Yeah,
hand
Jella
raised.
raised her hand. Yeah, go ahead, Jella.
Hi, I'm not the project manager on this, so I'm not sure exactly, but you were asking, there was a question about plans.
Yeah.
And that the previously approved plans were submitted, but no proposed plans. And there are no changes, so this is not an amendment application, but doesn't the board stamp new plans for an extension of term as well?
No, it's
Not
not
a
an
term,
extension
though.
of time. It's an
time.
extension of.
Oh, it's extension of time? Okay. All right, thank you. Extension of time doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing else. It's just an extension of time to obtain a CO. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So, and maybe that was a confusion about what was stated at the hearing the last time, but that's the issue. I have a question for Mr. Gayon. So what's outstanding to obtain the CO?
The only thing outstanding is that we obtain this extension of time. That's it. That's all that's outstanding.
Oh, so, okay, so then how much time are we talking about needing of an extension?
Sorry, my son came in. I didn't hear what you said. Can you repeat that, please?
Oh, okay. How much time do you need to obtain the CO?
The last inspection was mid October 2019, and it's good for 18 months. So that gives us to mid-April.
Which means that you would have the mid-April, you would be finished and sign off? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
So would a 1-year extension to obtain a CO be long enough?
It depends on, this doesn't look like it's going to be done by then, so we'd probably need re-inspection. So we'd probably need, I don't know how long that's going to take, but I can ask the client and their architect how long they think it's going to take, and we can figure out, if a year is going to be sufficient.
Okay, so that's the question. How long to obtain a CO? Okay. All right. All right. Let me see. So nobody called in on this one. And how much time to respond to our questions?
I could probably respond, in as quick as a week. So.
Okay, well, a week isn't necessary, but you can answer everything and supply all the information within, say, 2-3 weeks?
That's
Is that
correct.
Fair?
That's fair.
All right, so let me think. Does any commissioners or council see a reason why we couldn't close this in anticipation of getting what we need?
No.
No? Okay. So let's do that. So to be clear, because I don't want to have to reopen it,
Of course.
we need an operational plan, right? To how you're going to keep the site clear of work being done outside and on the sidewalk. We need photos showing, actual photos showing no parking tow zone on the sidewalk. We need the compliance checklist, both signed and notarized by someone, the person who's knowledgeable about the site, but specifically a letter from the owner, different than the chart, saying
Sure.
that they're not using oil-based paint. And then clarification in the statement of facts about why there's no fence between the two sites. And that's okay.
Would you like
and-
clarification in the statement of facts as to lot 52 as well? We can just drop something in.
Yes,
Okay.
please. As
Okay.
much clarity you can give, then that colors the resolution and makes it clear for the next renewal of term or whatever. And to clarify also that there's no new work proposed, therefore there's no
Yep.
change in the plan. Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, so based on that, and if you have any further questions, please reach out to your project manager, which is Jolene.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay.
I appreciate
right.
it. Thank you for your time.
Sure. So a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
We'll let you know when the follow-up decision date is, okay? But start working on the stuff right now, okay?
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 16, 33279BZ 43-20 Little Neck Parkway, Queens.
I think I saw the owner. Yeah, I don't see Todd. Here he comes.
Good morning, or actually good afternoon now.
Yeah, wait. Okay.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I affirm.
Okay, please proceed, Mr. Dale.
So good afternoon, everyone. We did listen to review session and heard the board's comments. I would note that the property owner, Ms. Risa Chain, is here again, can speak to an update and be available for any questions. You know, I would just state out, we appreciate the board's understanding and patience in dealing with this. We realize that application has been going on some time, but we're hoping that, you know, with the latest submission and the property owner being here, there is a commitment to moving forward and addressing all the issues. A couple of quick comments from review session. First, with respect to the dry well, I do realize we just had the one photo showing where the dry well is installed, but I would note that we did submit the actual sign off from the Department of Buildings in the paperwork. So I realize that maybe we could have done a photo from a different angle, but the Department of Buildings sign off seems to be pretty substantive proof as to it being completed. But we can also submit.
Can I interrupt just a second on that? So let me be clear about what we need to see, right? The photos that we got are of a leader and a gutter and a downspout, basically, going to some little bit of digging, like a foot wide by, I don't know, 6 feet long along that, of unknown purpose. And we got no other photos. And that can't be the location of the dry well. Is that Commissioner Sheta? Yeah, there you go. So that can't be the location of the dry well because we didn't get anything that would indicate there was a dry well there, right? It just looks like there's this leader and the downspout.
It's the first photo there. That's the area where the work took place, where those cones are. But I mean, we can definitely submit other photos of the area showing you that. But I would say of greater import, though, in the document that was titled Dry Well and Drain Agreements and DOB Filings, page 7 shows that we received the permit for the dry well installation, and page 6 is the proof of the DOB sign off for the work. So we're not disputing that we can submit better photos. That's for sure.
In addition to the photos, in order to get approval from DOB, the architect who was hired had to submit drawings. So include the drawings, so at least we know what the scope of the work was.
Sure.
Because at this, they could do almost anything, you know, one little bit of a thing, and we wouldn't have an idea of what the actual scope of the improvement is.
Understood. So we can submit dry well plans in addition. That no problem doing that. With respect to just so the board is aware, we still have an ongoing document where we're tracking all the items that were requested. You know, the milling and paving of the site, the fence repair, the landscaping, the light installation. I will need to double check the record, but I'm not sure. We had submitted a second set of plans, the site plan, including a lot of information that the board had requested, including dimensions of the buffer, where the light poles were going to be installed. I'm not sure if you received that plan. From my records, it looks like it was submitted shortly after in 2020, after the pandemic started. So we'll double check with the project manager or records to make sure that the board has it. But we did submit a plan showing a lot of the information the board wanted. I'm not sure if it was received or not, but regardless, in addition, you know, in conjunction with all the site work that needs to be done, we'll submit a plan and update it as needed to reflect the work that was done. But just to be very clear, we have a list that was discussed by the board with all those items. We're very aware of what needs to be going on. I can go into detail now about it, but a number of items that were on that list really were site work. And we need to show proof that the site work was completed. Now that the dry well has been installed, and it's possible to move forward, and Ms. Chang can speak to that, you know, as far as the progress. But now that we can go forward, we'll be able to move forward much more quickly now and provide the board with both photographic and plan submissions reflecting this work.
Okay, so just to clarify, because I really did look through the materials and I couldn't find any submission subsequent to the December 18 submission. This case was adjourned 4 times actually, from all of 2019 and the first in February of 2018. And then there was a proposal to adjourn in August of 2020. And I said no. And so we didn't review anything because it was a request to adjourn, right? And so we refused the adjournment and said, what's going on, right? So because the stance has been adjournment, if anything was submitted, we may not have seen it. So what I would ask you to do is, as you say, update everything to bring it to 2021, because if anything, it was submitted in 2019 or something like that. And update everything and resubmit, okay?
100%, we will do that, and we'll clarify, and we'll also enumerate all the items that were there that were originally requested, the landscaping, the paving, the lighting installation, all of that. The fact that there are, since it was first noted, there have been no vehicles stored on the site other than those that would be parked temporarily accessory to uses. The dumpsters are only located where they're shown on the plans, but we'll make sure that that's all very clear to the board. I don't know if you have any questions for the property owner as far as status or progress, but.
Yeah, just one second. Daryl has his hand up. Go ahead, Daryl.
I just want to state for the record, submissions I have for this applicant is August 17, 2018, and they also have submissions from July 23rd, 2020. And that was with, conjunction with
It was what? The July what?
July 23rd, 2020. And that was with the adjournment request, but they submitted a few things with that. Those are only two submissions
Okay.
that I have. All right.
I'll
So it-
confirm again. We had a record of a couple submissions July, but we'll make sure that that gets to you, the updated plans and everything.
Okay, so it no longer matters what you submitted in July. We just need an updated submission. Okay.
Understood.
And we don't need to hear like any more argument about this was tied to that, and that's why we're waiting until we finish this and then proceed. Like you mentioned, the dry well, if it is shown in photo 1, like I said during the executive session, the area, the work area for that dry well is probably 20 feet by 20 feet. And I'm looking at the site right now, it's huge. I'm not sure why the rest of the site is tied to the installation of the dry well. If there is like a money issue or something like that, it's much better to disclose that to us, because when you try to tie the work to something and this is not real, honestly, it feels bad for us when reading the submission. Personally, I feel like you're fooling me. So it's instead of like playing these kind of games, just let's put the things straight, like right straight to the real reason. If you have said previously you don't have money to advance work, we're not gonna say no, make a money and just make this happen and do the work. We understand it's very tough time, and we appreciate that when you tell something, it's accurate.
Right, okay, but the dry well is installed now, so we don't need to talk about that as the reason for the whole. So let's hear from Ms. Chain about what the movement will be going forward.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for the information to look for financing. Unfortunately, the lot did not qualify for any financing under any program. Nothing.
Not even the PPPs, the federal.
It's a lot by itself and it has no payroll.
Oh.
You know, it's accessory to buildings that are managed by the management company, and it, you know, but it's owned on its own. So apparently it fell through the cracks. As far as, I don't know if you can see this, as far as Commissioner Shetta is concerned, I don't know why you didn't get this picture. I don't know if you can see it, but that's what he's looking for. See it?
Never got that.
You see, Commissioner Shetta?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do see.
Yeah,
We didn't get
I see that. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll submit that photo.
I gave it to Mr. Dale. Okay, so
if you have more photos like that, because I'm imagining you might have wandered around more often, please send as much as you can. The more information we have, the more informed we are, that's all.
okay, fine. I just took out this one because of his specific concern. So I guess I've answered the question that, and I said last time that I was at the hearing that we were basically broke. And that really hasn't changed. Our restaurant came back on January 30th and it was closed again in December. So it hasn't been able to pay rent. That is the restaurant that uses the parking lot. Then of course the winter came. So we scraped enough money together to do those dry wells because that wasn't so much winter sensitive as any kind of paving would be. And that's why it hasn't been repaved, because we're in February and it's covered in snow. So at least we finished that, and we finished all the hookups. You saw the drain pipes and everything to go, you know, for roof drainage and so forth. And now basically we're waiting on the weather. As far as finances, I think that we've agreed amongst the LLC members that we're going to make capital contributions to the company to cover the expenses, unless something else goes wrong. So I have to get updates on all of the contracts because they're a year old now. And I understand at least the paving has gone up 10% and so forth. So I'm waiting on all of those new contracts, and I'm hoping that we can start the construction, which is going to consist of digging trenches throughout the lot for lighting, remilling the whole lot, repaving and restriping. And we did stripe once between, we said we hadn't done anything. There was a submission, and I guess that's the one you didn't get, that I did restripe the whole thing last year and try to clean things up so it will do better. So now that we're gonna redo that. And hopefully I'll start mid-April.
Okay, great. Okay, that's good. I have a question. When I saw your remill bill, and I only know the site from photos, so other commissioners have driven on the lot, right? Sometimes we just ask for a resurfacing if the condition of the underlayment is good enough, where it's not a remilling, it's a coating. What's that called again when they put the coating?
Seal coating. Seal coating.
Seal coating. Sometimes, sometimes that's adequate, and would be obviously a lot less money. I don't know whether you have serious structural issues with the condition of the asphalt at the moment that it needs to be remilled. So
I believe, well, I have a couple of different quotes. One is the opinion of the contractor is that it has to be remilled completely. Another one said remilled where necessary, but that kind of leaves it open. So I don't know what he's going to do where or what charge for it. So I've asked that contractor to revisit. The other thing is that we have a lot of dry wells in the lot to improve the drainage, and the contractor who installed those is going to I don't know if I'm using the right word, but recollar them, reset them. They're okay, but they're a little sunken. So although they function, my understanding is that if the whole lot is not remilled, the new tar won't stick and it will crack.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Believe me, I've tried to do it.
I would suggest, I know that I gave some hard time. Now it's time to be nice. I would suggest not to get a recommendation from a contractor, because if I'm a contractor and you ask me what is your scope, I would expand this to the maximum possible.
I hear you.
You can hire an engineer, get a quick consultation. He would give you the least you can do.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Will do.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. So whatever the outcome of it is, as long as it looks uniform when you're done and it'll hold up to the wear and tear of Parker's, that's what we're after, right? Okay. Commissioner, Vice Chair Shanda has her hand up.
I really appreciate Ms. Chain's commitment to the improvements that are being made. And I have to say, I would suggest, if this is acceptable, is that to the board, that we ask the applicant to provide a phased out improvement plan for this site. The reason I say that is because this site is unusually huge as an accessory parking space, and any amount of work would be significantly expensive, especially in light of the financial hardship Ms. Chain is going through. So if this is acceptable to the board, Madam Chair, would you be open to the idea of them suggesting a phased improvement plan, whereby based on one of the phase improvement that can happen more in the spring, we kind of close and then put the rest as a condition and they follow through on the phased improvement, rather than having them do all the improvements before we close on it, because that's also an additional, a cost to the owner with regards to the application submission, documents, paying the consulting counsel fee and others.
I'd say that my personal opinion about this is that we've been at this for 2 years, more than 2 years, 2 years and 2 months. And had there been great cooperation right away, that might have been a consideration, but we've only started to see cooperation in August, like in response to the August hearing where we required they attend instead of adjourn. So until we see, like for instance, the spring is almost here, right? So if the remilling, if the work that can be done in the spring is started, or we have demonstration that they're moving forward, now there's a demonstration of a real effort. But at the moment, all we have is a couple of photos of a downspout. We don't actually, well, now we saw the dry well that Ms. Chain showed us, but still, I would like to stay in this game a little longer to make sure that we're moving forward. Just because we've been at this for so long without any appearances up until August, where we required the appearance. So that's my opinion there. Anyway, okay. So Mr. Dale, could you then submit sort of a work plan? Well, this really, Ms. Chain is preparing it for you, but to submit a work plan to tell us what the sort of schedule of efforts are to bring the site up into good repair. And also, of course, you need to submit all those documents. It's another reason we can't close it. There's all these outstanding issues that haven't been responded to, or if, right, that were still open in December of 2 years ago.
Understood.
So,
We'll submit for the next submission. We'll submit a copy of the drywall plans that were prepared by the contractor, the engineer. We'll submit the drywall photo that was shown. We will submit the updated site plan that included the numbering of the spaces, the dimension of the buffers, the lighting, and all of that. We'll submit then also a initial timeline for the work to be done and when we expect it to be done, so the board can have that as a gauge of progress. And then we'll submit, proof of progress depending on when the next hearing date is, and if we're on target for, I believe it was April work for the milling. We'll submit photos and proof of all the work that we're able to do by the next time.
okay. So thank you. Let's go to the public. We didn't do that yet.
The item we are discussing currently is 33279BZ, 4320 Little Neck Parkway, Queens. You want to call in at 646-558-8656. Zoom webinar ID number is 934-5509-6525. Passcode is 910475. And if you are in the Zoom room, please raise your hand. And if you've already called in, I think it's what, *9 or *6 to unmute.
*9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute.
*9 to raise hand. I always get that wrong. And *6 to unmute.
Okay. All right. So if we talk about April work, how about you appear again in end of May?
Okay.
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so, all right. So that's an appearance end of May, but the photos can be submitted. Photo of actual work in place can be submitted like right up before the hearing, but everything else has to be submitted 3 weeks before, which is the standard, okay? So
Perfect.
photos in place, though, let's say the Wednesday before the hearing.
Understood.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chain, also for coming into this.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item is 11407BZ, 7-05, 152nd Street, Queens.
Hi.
The only one, Elise?
No, I should have the owner on the phone who has a 631 number, or is Tim O'Sullivan or Mary O'Sullivan. And then I should also have Amber from Equity.
Yeah.
I hear her.
I'm here, Elise.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, everybody's ready?
Is there anyone else?
No.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Yes.
Owner, I didn't hear you.
Tim?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Proceed, Mr. Folder.
Elise Fullader from Eric Palatnik PC. I'm here with Amber and the owner to address your comments. The first comment I would like to say is that while we put the fencing on the flat plans, we will add them to the elevations. That's not a problem. And then I have the owner here and Amber here with me to address more specifically how that side yard is used and why we need it in this situation, and also about potential options we can do going forward, because we recognize that, or you also recognize that this was previously approved, and we're just trying to maintain a daycare that's really the community loves, and it's really important for this community. There isn't a lot of daycares, and everybody, it's an important part of where they are. So Tim, would you like to explain?
Just one second. Just one second. The fence is not shown on the plan on the side yard. There's nothing, no fence.
Okay.
What?
So that, yeah, we were sorry, Madam Chair, we're going to show under existing in both flat.
It's breaking up.
Yeah.
You're breaking up unless it's me. I can't understand Amber. She's, is it me or is it her?
It's me too.
Tony,
yeah, I can hear you, but there's some interference.
Madam Chair, we're going to take care of making sure that the existing 6-foot vinyl fence is shown in the flats and the elevations.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Something's happening.
Mute Mr. O'Sullivan.
Yeah, I think you need to mute him.
He's frozen.
Okay.
Tim, could you maybe call in if you're having a problem?
Yeah.
Mm.
Ms. Bolidari, I'm not sure what to do.
I want him to tell you about the side yard.
Okay. So Amber, Ms. Cortellian is going to do that?
I wanted Tim to explain to you why it is necessary. They can't get rid of it. And the fact that it is only used with about 8 children at a time, and the children are less than 2 years old. It's 12 months to 2 years old, and that's all that use the side yard. So,
but according to that, then the tech memo would have reflected that population for that age group and that quantity, did it?
Amber.
That's correct. Yes, it did. So we use standard noise levels for an early childhood education center. That being said, I think that in terms of that's done from previous studies, and the noise levels associated with that assume larger than 8 children playing at once. There's really nothing to adjust that, so it's just anecdotal in terms of the noise. But more importantly, I think, and Tim can speak better to this, is the fact that transporting that age group, infants to 2-year-olds to use, either the 2nd or 3rd floor terrace would pose significant issues in terms of.
That's a different subject. That's a different subject. Let's stick with noise, because that's your specialty, right?
Also, Tim does have, I should say, a great relationship with the house next door.
Okay, let's stick with the noise subject for a second.
This is the noise subject.
No, I need to stay one subject at a time. Otherwise, it's all a mess. Right. All right.
Sure.
Said there are 8 children, 2 years to what?
It's 12 months to 2 years.
12 months to 2 years, and they're out there from when to when?
I'm on the call. If you can hear me now, I called in.
We can.
Okay, yeah, I apologize for that. I was just having trouble, I think, due to the weather. So it's the playground is open for a total of 4 hours per day, so 9:30 to 11:30 and 3:30 to 5:30. The most number of children that can be out there at any one time is 15 because that's our largest classroom. There's 9 classrooms on the floor, but 2 of them are infants, so they don't go to the playground. They go out independently for walks with the teachers. So for the most part, you're talking about most of the classrooms down there are 7 to 8 kids, and they'll be out for about 20 minutes to half an hour a day.
So I don't understand. So you said 9:30 to 11:30 and 3:30 to 5:30. What's out there for 20 minutes a day? That's more than 20 minutes.
Well, no, each classroom.
Okay, so
Each
it's
classroom.
7.
So they're not out there at the same time. They're not all the classrooms are out there at the same time. So they rotate out there. It's not big enough space to accommodate all the children, and they wouldn't want to have all the children out at the same time anyway.
So it's 7 to 8 kids per 20 minutes.
I'm sorry?
7 to 8 kids per 20 minutes.
Well, it depends. So sometimes they'll put 2 classrooms out at the same time, but it's never. And the biggest classroom, there's 1 classroom on that floor that's 15 kids. So that would be the most that would be out there at any one time.
So sometimes there's 15 kids. So that's different.
Yes, ma'am.
So how often are there 15 kids? And
Well, there's
how
only
long-
one. There's only 1 classroom of 15 children.
Uh-huh.
So that would just be. Hold on one second. I just want to make sure. I think they go out once in the morning and once in the afternoon.
For 20 minutes each?
Yes, ma'am.
So, but what if so why are there 15 kids in that one? Is it because you have just more kids?
Why? There's 1 class. Depending on the age group, they only allow a certain amount of kids in a class. So for up to 24 months old, the most number of children could be, say, 10 per classroom. But once it goes over 2 years, between 2 and 3 years, they'll allow 15 kids per classroom. And on that floor, we have 1 classroom that can accommodate kids over 24 months old.
So only 1 classroom. Okay.
On that floor, that's correct.
So, and that floor only kids from classrooms on that floor use this side yard?
That's correct. That's correct. So the second floor, the children who are older on the second floor use the second floor playground, and the first floor playground is tailored to younger children. So the playground equipment is smaller, and on the second floor they're older kids. So there's playground equipment that's got a slide on it and climbing apparatus, which they don't have on the first floor because the children are too little.
Okay.
So we wouldn't want the little children going up to the second floor because the playground equipment is not rated for that age group.
But the classroom that has 15 kids downstairs on that floor, are those kids the same age as the kids on the second floor, as some of the kids on the second floor?
It's a great question. I'm the owner of the building, so I'm not the tenant, so I don't have that maybe deep operational knowledge. But yes, there are kids on the second floor who are the same age as the kids in that 1 classroom.
So why don't we have the operator of this? I don't understand why the owner is representing the operator. These special permits are for the operator. I'm sorry, I'm very confused now. Why is
Can I just add to this discussion? I'm looking at the plan, and the proposed second floor plan has all the classrooms where children are aged 2 to 12.
Wait. Vice Chair Shanda, I'm not finished with my question. I want to understand why isn't the operator of the school appearing for this factual information? These special permits run to the school, not to the owner. I'm confused. Ms. Fullader.
We represent the owner, and we've been speaking through that, but we're happy to have Kitty Academy come on, and the owner can let them know, and we can have any statement you need from Kitty Academy.
Well, we need to have Kitty Academy respond to the operations of Kitty Academy. The landlord doesn't have special knowledge about the operation.
Have you been, can Kitty Academy call in potentially?
We could, yeah. You want to have Judy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can have. Our office is in the same building as the Kitty Academy, so we can try to get the manager to call in. Why don't you run down there and give her the.
That Kitty Academy is the fact witness for Kitty Academy. That's just the way it works, right? Maybe you could talk about your relationship with the neighbor.
Certainly. Well, so I built the building that we're the Kitty Academy. I built this building, but I also built the 4 houses adjacent to the Kitty Academy, and I have a good relationship with these people. I think we've been operating here, I want to say close to 12 years, and we have not had one noise complaint from any neighbor. In fact, up until COVID, there was actually a wait list for this daycare center. It's probably the most popular daycare center in the neighborhood, and that's the reason that they were looking to expand, is because they have a wait list, and they have they're one of the only places in this immediate neighborhood that provides the UPK on a private basis, and they have a lot of demand, so that's why they were looking to expand to the 3rd floor.
Right, but my question has to do with the neighbor. So you're their landlord.
No, I'm not the landlord. No, that house is privately owned. They bought that house from me maybe 2004, 2005, something like that.
Okay, so you sold the house to the people who live there.
Yes, ma'am.
And the people who own the house are the residents, the residents of the house.
That's correct. It's a 1-family house.
Okay. No, as opposed to that they're renting it out to tenants. That's my question.
No, they're the owners and they live there.
Okay. So your relationship with those neighbors in terms of the question that's before us, which has to do with the noise that the tech memo indicated was caused by a standard quantity of kids in the side yard. What do you know about what's your experience with those neighbors?
I mean, we have a great relationship. They've never once said to me, they've never complained once about the children on the side yard. They're very happy with the house, and in fact, that they were building another development. Actually, that you approved the private road on Sullivan Drive 2 years ago, and they asked they wanted to see if I would sell a house to one of their children. So we have a great relationship.
Okay.
And he can always, we can always ask the neighbor or have a conversation with the neighbor and provide proof that the neighbor is not having a problem with this side yard. We're more than happy.
Well, so it would be a letter from the neighbor. I mean, that's what we talked about before. Reaching out to the neighbor and getting confirmation from them that they're okay with what's been going on for all those years, right? Not the immediate, but the prior years.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a letter from the neighbors confirming they're okay with this, because, Ms. Kartalian, the tech memo, if it's not representing the conditions, we forwarded it to DEP. they're not going to be okay with the idea that you put in acoustical curtains, blackout curtains in the neighbor's windows as a solution. That's not enough.
Understood. And if I could just kind of speak to that and the methodology behind that. So just in terms of the noise analysis, we conservatively assumed, early childhood education center standard noise levels across the board for all three of the play areas. And when we looked specifically at that surface play area, the issue that we ran into was basically we looked at a minimum distance of no impact based on those standard noise levels and the existing noise levels. And that gave us a number of 40 feet. And, based on that distance and where that surface play area is located, there was no feasible design solution, that would make sense to install for that surface play area that would avoid nuisance on that neighbor from that surface play area. So we had consulted with an acoustical specialist on some more creative approaches that wouldn't be intrusive in terms, replacing windows of the neighbor that might also work as something to offer to them to help mitigate some of that noise. So I understand that it's not ideal, but
it's more than not ideal. You live there. And I come to you because I want to have a really noisy use next door. And I say, I'm going to get a special approval from the BSA. And the only little thing is you need to always have these curtains put in your house, in your windows. And the only way you can stop the noise is if you close the curtains, which are blackout curtains, so that you no sunlight between the hours of whatever it is, 9:30 to 11:30 and 3:30 to 5:30. Are you okay with that?
Completely understood, and we will definitely take that into consideration. And I just want to point out, though, that we did do some additional digging, and we found some curtains that are also transparent that could also address that issue. But
not blackout.
I need to take you. This is your house. You live there. I knock on your door and I say, in order for me to do this kind of annoying thing next door, I need you to put these curtains up. Are you okay with that? Don't talk like the scientist here. Talk like the rest of the house, right?
I live next to a school, so I completely get it. For me, I don't hear it as the devil's music, but I understand where you're coming from. I have a 5-year-old, so that's happy noise to me. But I understand. I think we will do. We'll have a follow-up conversation with our acoustical specialist. But I think in terms of having that discussion with the neighbor, to the extent that we can get something from them in letter form that says that it's not a nuisance, if that satisfies the board, then as Tim said, they have a great relationship and there's been no issues to date.
So is this daycare center operating now?
Yes, ma'am.
It is.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
They're not obviously outside now. I'm wondering if when the weather gets better, you could do some actual field readings instead of doing this, because at the moment your information is saying it's horrible and the seeker answer is that there's a significant impact. So you want to go to an EIS over this? I mean, that's basically what you're telling us. So there's got to be another way that's based on field measurements to find out what the impact really is. If it's little teeny kids that are sitting below a 6-foot fence, you would think that they actually their little voices are blocked by the fence. So I mean, because when you took that picture, that's a photograph taken from eye height of an adult, right? It's 5 feet off the ground, not 3 feet off the ground. They're not even 3 feet tall, right?
Yeah. Just to kind of speak to that is that the way that the noise analysis is done, they don't allow us to do a reduction of noise levels from the distance of the noise source being somebody standing to the height of that second floor of the adjacent residential building. So there's really no reduction in terms of the noise that propagates. So this is kind of looked at raw to say, okay, our minimum distance of impact is 40 feet. Here's the noise that's projecting above that 6-foot fence. And can you basically block it? And the attenuation that was identified here was, I think, 6 decibels is what would be required. So it is relatively low in terms of the required noise reduction that would be needed for seeker. But we weren't able to take that into consideration in terms of the analysis.
Okay, so you need to be a little more creative in your analysis. And I'd suggest that maybe what happens is a reading gets taken in the spring when you actually know something about the site. And by the way, the spring is already here, the snow's melting and all of that. It's not so much time that kids go out to play. When do they start letting kids go play in the yard? Like as soon as they can,
As
right?
soon as it warms up. As soon as it warms up. But as soon as they can, they'll go out with winter jackets on.
Right. So why don't we, because it's already the end of February, why don't we say something like the end of April, you take some actual field readings from the neighbor's site, and then we know the answer about whether there's any kind of mitigation from that existing 6-foot fence. Okay, because otherwise we're relying on a tech memo that's saying very bad stuff. So I'm gonna, is there something you wanted to add there, Ms. Hartalian?
I don't know.
Sorry. I guess my question would be, you know, if we went out and took additional noise readings and you know, we compared them to the existing ambient noise readings that we had with no children playing outside, the ones that we used to conduct this analysis, and we compared them, you know, that is something that could be done. But in terms of the board's suggestions during the review of you know, approaching the neighbor, is that not something that?
No, so I would say you have a really terrible tech memo that's telling you that you are not mitigating the nuisance. You called it a nuisance yourself, right? And it's suggesting that the neighbor handle your nuisance, which is really not an acceptable solution. So much better is, what are the actual field readings? Measure them, and you can do that. And then we could also have information from the neighbor, but I don't feel so comfortable about the neighbor because there's always pressure to be nice and all of that stuff. Let's hear what it really is. If it's true that we don't have an issue, the measurements will tell us that.
Okay, understood. I just do want to point out though that in the secret technical manual for noise mitigation, window treatments on receptors, if there is a potential impact, are something that are listed under there.
I don't want to go there. You're suggesting plastic curtains in someone's house. I would say no to that if it were my house. So would you.
Understood.
Okay, so I'm just going to go. Vice Chair Shanda, you wanted to say something and I interrupted you, so go ahead.
No, it's okay. I think I was just trying to understand the way the classrooms are laid out. I think on the second floor onwards, now the plan has disappeared, please. Second floor onwards, I think all the classrooms are from 2 to 12-year-old. The only classroom that's on the ground floor that is below that age group is the 2 to 3-year-old. That's the only one. I'm assuming that's the one that's with 15 children or something like that, though the drawing here says 19 children. So,
but that's why we need to have someone from the actual daycare center.
Jim, did you get her on, or?
Well, I mean, I think if we're going to be, I think if we're going to be doing another hearing, then it probably makes more sense for me to prepare her, because she was not, wouldn't be ready, I don't think, to just come on and speak without, she didn't even know there was a hearing today, let's put it that way. So it may not be fair to just.
So wait a second. This is actually a little upsetting to me. This is an application for a special permit, right? I know it's an amendment of a special permit that was issued to the Kitty Academy. It wasn't issued to the landlord. I don't understand why the Kitty Academy owner or operator is cut out of this conversation. It means arguably we can't rely on any of the information. This is really quite strange. We always have the operator of the school present at the hearings, and the owner simply is a co-signator on the application, not the representative of the school. That's very distressing. And the idea of preparing them, that they represent themselves, and if they need to be represented by counsel, they should be. I mean, it's very confusing to me. I'm actually, here we go again. All right, so
Madam
yeah.
Chair, I have a question with regards to the noise. I was just trying to think, are there fences that kind of curb inwards after a certain height? And then if you put acoustical lining inside, will that make the noise, will that reduce the noise penetration less?
So Vice Chair China, that's actually a really good point. And that was what we took a look at. We actually modeled this. So we looked at a 3D model of that option. And even with that fence with overhang, you still wouldn't block line of sight to the upper floor windows. So that was something that we took into consideration.
If you look at that photograph that they provided, you can see that, like, no matter how tall you make that fence, you can still see the second floor. So short of a covering, like maybe a half over the side yard. I mean, if you build something like a half greenhouse over the side yard, that would block the line of sight, right? But but that I don't see that you just don't do it from just from that one vantage point. There are other vantage points. So, okay. All right, so I would say, let's open this up to the public.
So the application we are discussing is 11407BZ, 7-05, 152nd Street, Queens. And if you're calling in at 646-558-8656, Zoom webinar ID number is 934-5509-6524, and the passcode is 910475. And if you're in the Zoom room, please raise your hand. And if you have called in, you can raise your hand with *9, and unmute is *6 to unmute to speak.
Very good. So there are a few phone numbers that have called in. Don't know if you're interested in speaking on this, but if you would like to speak on this case, the Kitty Academy, please raise your Zoom hand by dialing *9. And then there are other people in the room whose names I don't recognize. Just raise your Zoom hand if you'd like to speak. So what I'd like to do is have you do the field studies based on the actual use of kids in the side yard once it warms up. So we're probably talking about coming back at the, let's say, middle of May. That should give you enough time to actually conduct the study with actual kids in the yard. Does that sound right, Ms. Cortellian?
Yeah, that sounds right. We'd want to take a look at, we'd probably want to put together, Tracy and Jella, some sort of methodology for how that analysis would be done and submit it to DEP in advance of that, just to make sure that we have their blessing on how we would conduct that.
Okay, so that you would be doing in the interim. You'll set up a protocol with them between now and actually having children in the yard, right? Okay, so is it right to say an appearance mid-May?
Tim, assuming that there would be children playing outside, we would need about, a week to prepare the analysis. So I think that should be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Also just make it appearance end May, and that'll definitely be enough. How about that? I just say N. Okay.
I mean, if
all
we're
right.
submitting this for DEP review of the protocol and then the report, I don't know if May is going to be enough time.
Okay. So you're submitting a protocol right away, like you're coming up with the idea now. So here we are at the end of February, right? So arguably 30 days puts you end of March, beginning of April for DEP to sign off on the protocol. Maybe even middle April, right? And then testing.
Or
No?
Tracy, alternately, like if DEP wants to hop on a call and we just walk through the hearing and what we're intending to do, just to get their feedback on it. I just don't want to be in a situation where we go back out, do additional noise monitoring, and they identify something that they would have preferred we had done differently. So
I
however-
understand. We're just doing a lot of calls recently,
Of
so
course, yeah,
I can't
no,
promise. I can't make any promises. So
completely
So I
understood.
think the most direct thing is to come up with your own protocol based on conversations with Ms. Banky, and then and submit that to DEP, and perhaps we'll get some response by whatever that is, the end of March, the middle of April, and then you could conduct the testing, and maybe we won't get DEP sign off yet, but at least we'll see what the test results are. Like right now, we have this tech memo, and I read the tech memo and I'm like, oh my God, they want to put these horrible acoustical curtains in someone's house. So that was pretty obvious to me, was a no-go, right? I'm hoping the results of this testing is that no curtains are necessary and that the 6-foot fence is enough, because the kids are really small and they squeal loudly, but there's not a lot of them, for example. Something like that. Okay.
Okay, I can have a protocol put together by tomorrow, Tracy, so I'll send that through.
great. Thank you.
And we still had other open issues anyway, right? We still had open DOT, so it's not like we were ready here.
Right,
then-
DEP might have their own comments on the tech memo. We should know that this week.
Okay,
So
so
if you want to hold off
That's helpful.
submitting, Amber, till we get the comments this week,
Sounds good.
hopefully.
Okay, good. So, and then the small changes to the drawings that are needed, but of course, I don't know if there's going to be any differences once we have testing. I mean, it
Right.
might mean that move the kids back in the play yard a little bit back, and the playground equipment is at the front, so it's sort of an obstruction. Who knows? I don't know. Whatever. Okay. All right. So thank you. I think that covers it. Any other comments from commissioners? No, there was nobody raising their hand, or I don't think. Is there anyone in the Zoom room right now who wants to speak on this application? This is
11407 BZ 7-05, 152nd Street, Queens.
So if you'd like to speak on this, please raise your Zoom hand. The reason I'm asking is because I see some faces in the Zoom room that haven't spoken yet. Okay, all right, so let's move on. Thank you very much. Thanks for calling in. And next time, definitely a person from Kitty Academy must come.
Understood.
Thank you.
Just trying to resolve an issue we came into. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the next item is item number 18, 12013 BZ, 1815 Forest Avenue, Staten Island.
Hi, good afternoon, Neil Weisbard.
Hi.
Are you by yourself, Neil?
I have John Howenstein, who I see his picture, and also Brian Spillane from ownership, and Richard Hooker.
Okay. And Richard Hooker is who?
Richard Hooker is the air quality consultant, and John Howenstein is the sound consultant.
Okay. Okay.
Has Mr. Hooker called in by telephone?
I'm not sure. I'll text him though while we're going through this, because we'll get to him last, if that's okay. Are you swearing us in, or it's not
Yeah,
necessary?
is everyone in? Do
But I'll text Mr. Hooker. Give me 1 second, please.
you want to start, Madam Chair, without him?
Yeah, we have 3 phone numbers. Those may be members.
Actually, he is on the phone and his number ends in, of course, 2709.
Nope, we don't have that.
And Brian Spillane ends in 2661.
That we have.
So that's Brian Spillane. He will need to be sworn in because he will be speaking. John will be speaking, and I don't know why. I'm not sure. Hooker's 4715.
Yes, we have him.
That's everyone.
Okay. Can we change their names though? So, because it's just phone numbers now. So,
Yes, could you state the last 3 digits again? 661 was?
661 is Brian Spillane.
Okay.
And 4715 is Richard Hooker. And John is in person with his name.
Okay. And we have one other that's 797. Is that one of yours?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, maybe that one by accident. Okay. Okay.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
The other people respond?
John is muted, but I heard him.
I do.
Okay. Mr. Spillane?
On the telephone, if you press *6 to unmute.
Richard Hooker, I do.
Brian Spillane, I do.
Okay, please proceed, Mr. Weisbord.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Neil Weisbord on behalf of the applicant. We all attended review session this morning, and I'll go through the comments and hopefully we can resolve everything and move towards closing this hearing finally. We will revise the plans to correctly show that the 15-foot high fence will be installed with the arborvitae facing the rear neighbors. It is shown on the sectional of BSA 004 section C-C, but it should be on all the plans, and we will do that. We will also revise the landscaping plans to include the number and type of landscapings. There was a question regarding the bollards. The chain preventing access to the site is attached to the bollards, and in certain areas, it's not attached to another bollard. In one location, it is attached to a light pole. In another, it's attached to the fence post, and in another, it's attached to the building. But we will revise the plan to show that. We might even just provide a separate bollard plan because the plans are getting very busy now, but we will make it clear how that works. The trash enclosure, the applicant has consulted with their carting company, and due to the turn radius, which Mr. Spillane can speak to, the doors must face the street. Brian will also explain that the doors at this restaurant are never kept open. And if Brian has a moment to speak to the board, he'd like to explain what they went through with the carting company. And this is the only way that this can work in compliance with zoning and turn radiuses. So Brian, you want to just explain your discussions with the carting company and how you operate the garbage?
Sorry, more than explain it, because this is a visual. Show the maneuverability of both options. Provide a diagram showing maneuverability to the doors as currently shown and maneuverability to the doors facing the restaurant. The issue for me is always every one of these applications assumes that the public and the neighbors have to handle the difficulties that the restaurants have in their operations rather than the restaurant itself dealing with the difficulties. So all the public have to look at the front doors to the trash enclosures. Whereas instead of having the restaurant look at the trash enclosure, which is just simply not right. But I actually don't see why why it can't be rotated slightly to change the maneuverability. And so I would have to say the instruction is change it and show the maneuverability, because I'm not even sure that it's allowed to be so close to the, Carlo, are you there? There's a distance from the street to the trash enclosure that's permitted. And I'm not sure that this even qualifies.
This actually does comply with zoning. This was the only spot that we could fit this in and comply with zoning. We will provide a diagram because I know that there was discussions with the carting company how this was going to work. We were fortunate enough to find a location that we could move it away from the residences, and we'll provide visuals. That's all I could.
Sorry, we lost you. Say it again, or maybe you lost me. Say it one more time.
What I could say is that we'll have to provide visuals that explain to the board why this is the only location. And if that's not correct, then we will have the doors face the other way. But what I'm being told by ownership is that this was researched and looked into, and the doors facing the street are how it needs to work. I'm not sure, maybe there's some kind of decorative treatment that could be on the doors. Either it's the doors or a cement block facing the street. But we will explain why. If it can be done, we'll do it. If it can't be done, we'll explain why it can't be done.
Okay, so see that attitude, what you just said there. It's cement block facing the street. Even that is a disagreeable approach to the community, right? So one way or the other, it's either trash facing the street or something as hideous as cement block facing the street.
Trash doors. No, but I don't want to be confrontational. We're trying to get to the finish line here. So I'll draw.
Yes, so what I'm saying is the idea that it's cement block is also disagreeable, right? So why is the proposal, which I'm not sure it is the architect present in this?
The architect is not here today.
Right, what do you know? All right, so the bring the architect. All the subject is about architecture, in case nobody realized. Everything we do at the board is about architecture. Everything. You should always have the architect, the person who designs the maneuverability and all of that, has to attend the hearings. I don't know why this is so hard to figure out. I'm sorry, you're getting the brunt of my fury about these applications and why they go on and on and on, because nobody seems to want to do their work. So the trash enclosure cannot be this hideous thing where you're saying, oh, you want to look at trash or you want to look at a block wall. So no, we don't want to look at either of those things. Okay. It's in a community, in a residential community where we walk by it and we don't want to be assaulted by ugliness. All right. Let's try to understand that. That's why I need the architects present, because they're the one who generally understand this concept.
I'm not defending myself. We will look if it cannot be, if the doors need to remain facing the street, then maybe there's a treatment that can be done. And if it can be rotated, then we'll ensure that there's some treatment on the trash enclosure that the community would be happy with.
Yay. All right. Bring the architect next time. Okay.
Okay. Regarding the lower the radio signs, those have been installed. They are still on the site. They were part of our July 27th, 2020 submission. Regarding the landscaping of the home, which fronts on Morningstar, the chair mentioned that you want arborvitae along that side lot line, and they've actually spoken with the owner of that building, Mr. James Olive, who provided a letter regarding the 15-foot high fence. And he does not want anything but the existing fence with the acoustic block on top of it. He does not want any arborvitae. And we could provide a letter to the board stating that.
All right, so we need a letter from him saying he doesn't want landscaping adjacent to his property.
We'll provide that to the board. We spoke to him today after the board's comment.
Wow. All right.
Okay, regarding this 6-foot high fence for the residents facing Hudson, the board had mentioned, why are you not putting a 15-foot high fence there? And John Howenstein from Cerami will explain that why the 6-foot high acoustic block fence is sufficient in this instance.
Okay.
So when we expanded our study to include the property line around to Hudson Place, we first of all analyzed the effect of the 6-foot high barrier to see where that would bring us relative to the various types of noise sources on the McDonald's property. And with the exception of the loudest activities that we measured from loud vehicle noise or vehicle engines revving, the 6-foot high barrier was sufficient to bring us down to within the thresholds we needed to be at with respect to code. So that was the reason why we limited our fence along that property line in particular to 6 foot high. Our comment regarding the second floor windows and the barrier not being effective at that height for second floor windows was primarily regarding the one property at Morningside, what is it?
Morningstar.
Morningstar,
Side lot.
508 Morningstar.
No, you said it relative to the other street. The statement was about both streets. It said Hudson Place. You said that Hudson Place second floor windows would not receive any attenuation from a 6-foot high fence, even though your data indicates that they would be receiving increased noise levels that were noticeable. I don't understand that.
They would be receiving elevated noise levels at the second floor windows, but still within the threshold of 7 dB.
Within the threshold of 7 dB, what do you mean by the threshold?
Meaning that with respect to the unreasonable noise section of the code, there's for noise other than impulsive noise, there's a 7 dB threshold. That if you're within that threshold, then it is in compliance with that section of the code.
And what about impulsive noise, honking?
Impulsive noise is a higher standard of 15 dB.
Okay, but did you test for impulsive noise? Did you model for impulsive noise?
Well, the impulsive noise sources, there is not a the types of sources that we have here are not impulsive. They're for noises that are basically of very short duration.
Like what?
I'm sorry. I was muted and I spoke. You could have this some sort of like impulsive noise when you have a car with, let's say, a double muffler and the guy just, he tuned it to be like bit noisy. So you're excluding a revving engine. I don't know why, if it's a very common occurrence on a site like this.
Well, your point is well taken. You could have a slamming car door. That's another example of an impulsive noise. But the effect here, the analysis was really to look at, we could have a myriad of noise sources that we really have no control over how loud they are, where they are on the property. There would be so many iterations of that occurrence that what our focus was, what would be the benefit of the 6-foot high barrier that was suggested by the BSA. And the properties along Hudson Place are predominantly one-story houses.
What? What? Are you sure?
There are two that are 2-story, and then I think there are 3 that are 1-story.
They are 1- and 2-story houses.
Okay.
I'm looking
So-
at the radius diagram.
What's very confusing about Mr. Hohenstein's testimony is we've been at this for so long because we have incredibly explicit testimony from neighbors who video recorded their experiences in the middle of the night and all the noise sources you can possibly imagine. They recorded them. So you don't need to come to every iteration. There's a specific list of noise sources that were identified by those videos. And those are the things that should have been studied with respect to the houses, those houses on Hudson Place. I'm very confused about this almost double speak now. Why are we talking as if we don't know what the noise sources are? We know exactly what they are. Those are the things that should be studied. And we know that there's radio, we know there's loud talking, we know there's revving of engines, we know there's car door slamming, we know lots of things because we saw movies of them. So please use those as your model and not some fictitious thing. And let's look at the sensitive receptors who are both people sitting on their first and second floor windows and the line of sight, okay? Please don't play games like this at this point. It's just exhausting.
No,
And
I'm not attempting to play games. I'm just pointing out the fact that the different noise sources are going to be of varying intensities, and so the effect of the barrier to reduce those activities by a certain level is what I'm referring to here.
Okay. So it was.
I just want to say something. The closest house to the drive-through on Hudson is kind of, I would describe it as not 2-story even. I would describe it as 2.5-story. If you look at the street view of that house, it has an elevated ground floor. So it's probably like 6 feet above the street. And then it has 2 floors on top of that. So it's really tall building. And even the other 2 buildings, that including the 1-story one, it has the same elevated ground floor thing. So I don't think 6 feet tall fence is gonna do much to these guys. And we don't wanna be bringing this case back to 0.0 again. So I'm not sure, are we willing to reach a resolution here or just to keep spinning?
We want to just come to a resolution. We don't want to be coming back anymore. If it's better to have the 15-foot high fence, but I think it would only be necessary along the 2-story building, which is a 25-foot wide portion, because that's the only one with a 2nd-story window, then that could be done. Is that something the board would accept? Because having a 15-foot high fence along that entire portion, it's not needed for the 1-story buildings. A 6-foot-high fence is sufficient. There's only 49 Hudson, lot 23, is the 2-story building with a 2nd-story window.
Yes, but it's not the board's job to look at the model you prepared and look at the data and curtail the layout of the proposed fence for you. You have an engineer who should look at the data, and if the house is 25 feet wide, the fence shouldn't be just 25. It should overlap to the right and left. All this kind of work cannot be done by us.
Right.
Well, I thought what Mr. Hallenstein said was that, and if it's going to take a 15-foot-high fence, but he was saying that at the 2nd-story window, and maybe that I'm wrong with the impulsive noises, that the sound from the drive-through, subject of this special permit, is within the code requirements. And that's why he recommended the 6 feet. But now you're questioning him, saying that, well, there is the impulsive noise that you have to take into account for. But we do not want to argue anymore. We want to get, we are as frustrated as you are. We want to get to the finish line. If the board thinks that a 15-foot-high fence, besides in the rear, which we're doing, and then on a portion of this side lot line, then that's what we will have to do.
Aren't we familiar with videos that got shot from the 2nd floor of these properties?
No, this is not these properties, not these properties.
They were the ones on the other side, but nonetheless, they were shot from approximately the same distance.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I didn't
No, they
mean
were
the
actually
same
taken
exact-
at the menu board. Those horns were honking at the menu board, which
All
is
right,
on the other side.
Okay, I don't want to do this anymore, all right? We've spent too much time on this application. It's crazy. I wish that you would just take an aggressive approach and just deal with these things so you don't have to keep knitting away like this. So yes, there's a 2-story house that faces on Hudson. It needs to be protected. Engineer, go protect it, all right? End of discussion. All right, we're done with this. This is unbelievable to me. All right, what else do you have?
The final point is the air quality analysis, and I think Ms. Bernacki wanted to get the board's comments before we move forward, but the air quality consultant is here, and I think we're just looking for a little guidance on how to handle this analysis.
Okay, well, what's the question? I don't know what the question is.
Well, the chair said we'll send it to DEP.
Right. So DEP will look at the protocol.
They might not comment, as I said in the past, with the noises that are tentative, they might not have a comment. And at that point, would the board be comfortable with going with the protocol as proposed?
I guess because I don't know what the protocol is. I don't know what the protocol is, but the whole idea is that the issue is the neighbors are complaining that all of the revving of the engines and all of that is causing pollution into their windows, which is reasonable. I think it probably does the same. I'm hoping that the vegetation that's planted, aggressively planted, and I'm going to use the word aggressive response to this application. One of the reasons this is going on so long is it feels like everybody's trying to negotiate the smallest effort possible. That's not how you get things done. Do the biggest effort possible. So as much tree planting as necessary to deal with the escaping fumes that are going to the adjoining property owner. So that's Mr. Hooker. Is that who's the air quality?
Yes.
Yes. So our the proposed testing that we're suggesting includes collecting 3 kinds of data. One would be worst case, which would be right at the menu board, and then we would collect samples along the property line nearest the adjoining properties that are issue, and then we would collect samples from the immediate vicinity on roads around. Okay, so then we can compare the the worst case of the source, right, at the menu board or in that area, then what's potentially going onto the property, and then how does that compare with what's going on in the general vicinity? Okay, so that's what we're proposing, but all that is somewhat contingent on what the solution is for noise, right? Because if we come back with our data and, you know, it's suggestive of some kind of a problem, then we have to understand what the noise solution is going to be. Because as you were saying, you know, the vegetation and the wall, you got to believe those have an effect on the sort of movement of air as well. So those are the two issues. And we can proceed with the testing without DEP comment or approval. There's really not much other, there's not really another method that we could use, because you can't model things on this small scale. You can model the potential impact of car exhaust from Verrazano Bridge on Battery Park, but you can't do it on this small scale. You know, air doesn't work that way. There are too many unknowns. So really all you're going to do is do a test, the kind of testing we're proposing in the field, and come back with the data and try and put some numbers on the problem. And then, you know, we got to ask the question, do the things that are going to have to happen anyway for noise, are they going to do away with this? So that's where we are.
Right, understood. So I just have a question in terms of comparison. Shouldn't the comparison instead be air quality taken when there's no drive-through operating on the site, and maybe air quality in the rear yards of the affected houses? So that's all of the rear yards, or at least some spot rear yards on.
Yeah, we can certainly, you know, there's different ways of skinning a cat, so to speak. We could certainly do that. We could do it when there's nothing going on the drive-through, and yeah, we right. and then that would mean 2 sets of tests, and there's nothing wrong with that. That might be a simpler way of going about it.
Because otherwise you're comparing to standing in the middle of a roadway, which obviously is more polluted than somebody's backyard, I hope, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is that the entirety of New York City fails EPA standards for particulate matter, you know, so it's like we can't solve that problem. So we have to have some kind of, you know, control. You know, some sort of, you know, what's going on in the general area versus what's going on in the drive-through and what's going on the adjoining properties. So.
Right, but it should, like, the whole issue is we don't want the level of the rear yards to be increased, the sort of toxicity level of the rear yards to be increased by the drive-through. That's really what the question
is. Understood, right? So first we got to measure it, and then we've got to take into account what the noise mitigation means for that particular problem. You know, so because we you know, it makes absolutely no sense at all for us to come up with a kind of an alternative solution to the noise thing. They've got to deal, whatever barrier vegetation goes up has got to deal with both simultaneously.
Right, understood. Okay, that makes sense to me. So I would say, if we can't get DEP to sign off on protocol, that as long as we've got it on the sort of no drive-through and with drive-through control, then that would be a fair comparison for me.
Okay. They might comment. I could send it as soon as this is over. It would just take 30 days. So it's up to the applicant.
Yeah, it's really a timing issue. You know, if we involve the DEP at this stage, we definitely know there's a delay of up to 30 days, and then they're probably going to comment, and then, you know, we're going to have to address the comments. And that if we proceed at risk, so to speak, then, you know, ultimately the DEP might have comments. But it seems to me, listening to the board, that really the DEP are not the audience that we need to satisfy. The DEP are the neighbors, right? And by that, I'm not trying to say that, you know, we're trying to get away with doing something that doesn't meet regulations, because it's always going to exceed that. But, you know, I think it's the board and the people we have to, we have to make sure are taken care of.
my personal preference is to just do it like this, you know? No drive-through, yes drive-through. And measure both on the drive-through site and in the backyards. And then,
Yep.
and then. So I
Okay.
guess you go early in the morning, or like the drive-through is supposed to be closed. I forget what the hours are. The drive-through is supposed to be closed at certain hours, so before or
Before 7
after.
a.m. and after 9 p.m.
Yeah, right. So there you go. Okay, so just.
Okay, we'll revise. I don't want to absolutely commit on the phone to doing that just because there might be some ring. I just have to think about it, but it sounds plausible on its face, right? So we'll revise the work plan very quickly and go ahead with the testing once
Okay.
we've confirmed with Tracy.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
and
once
Vice-
the testing's completed, if we send to DEP at that point, they might want a little additional, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Like you said, it's at
yeah.
risk. So
Yeah, but we can, you know, we certainly, listen, we're not going to design this thing such that we anticipate or we want to provoke blowback from DEP. We want to do something reasonable. And clearly we wouldn't be doing our jobs if they came back and were scratching their head saying, what are you doing, you know? So we'll get it as close as we believe will be approvable while attending to the specific problems that have been raised by the neighbors.
Okay, great. And Vice Chair Shanda, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was probably by mistake. Sorry.
All right, great. Let's go to the public unless somebody else wants to speak.
Getting close to 2 o'clock. 12013 BZ, 1815 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. Okay,
Yeah, so if
Colleen,
you're in, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
if you're in the Zoom room, it's press star 9 to raise your hand. I'm sorry, raise your hand. If you're calling in at 646-558-8656, press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute. The Zoom webinar ID number is 934-5509-6525.
Words to that effect. So if anyone is already in the Zoom room and would like to speak on this application, please raise your Zoom hand. And if you're a caller inner, I see one person with a phone number, star 9 will raise your Zoom hand. Because we did have a lot of participation from neighbors before. But I don't see any hands up. Okay. All right, so how much time to respond to all of these things and conduct the testing, and of course DEP turnaround for noise?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the driving factor. Richard,
Chair,
how much
sorry,
time
Chair,
do
can
you
you
need?
sorry, Neil, to interrupt. Did you want to send this for noise or did you mean air quality, Madam Chair?
No, so air quality, I thought they were going to go ahead. Oh, I see, for both, right? Weren't they going to be submit? We were still waiting
No.
for them to noise study?
We don't,
No,
go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I've never just heard that we would have to submit anything based on noise to DEP. We will revise our sound study based on your comments today.
Right.
But
No, I thought we were still. I thought we were still waiting for DEP review of the noise study. No.
No, we hadn't determined that this was at the level that will go to DEP for noise yet. That's what I was going to confirm.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So basically what we're talking about is modifying the drawings and doing the noise study.
Modifying, Cerami will modify their sound study for ESA only, but DEP would be involved, if they needed to be involved, in the air quality, is my understanding. Tracy, am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, I defer to the board because on this
No, so
sub.
the noise study is going to be amended to reflect, to take a look at the impact on the two-story house, right? And
Yes.
make sure that the fence is tall enough to protect that house
Yes,
from all noise sources. And or all known noise sources that we've been looking at for the last however many months we've been at this. And the noise and the air quality is going to be done as discussed and submitted to us, and also submitted to DEP once it's done. And then we're sort of taking our at risk that DEP says, no, we wish you'd done it this way. And then we might say, well, it's good enough, or DEP might have some really good ideas that none of us thought of. I don't know. Right?
Okay.
Sort of like that. Okay?
May I ask one thing? Can the applicant provide photos from the rear of the buildings on the 46 Hudson? Just so that we have a clarity on the heights of the building.
yes.
But you can see it from satellite view. But yeah, for the record, you can see you can go to the rear and take pictures just from the lot line and look inside. And then, of course, the drawings have to be amended to actually look like what's discussed. And I have to beg Mr. Weisbard, please, please, please review the materials before they're submitted. Make sure they're responsive to everything we've talked about. Make sure they're internally consistent one thing to the other, so that I don't have to say, why doesn't it look like the picture? Okay. Please, beg you. It's beyond mind exploding to be looking at drawings that still are not internally consistent. Okay. All right, and then of course, with the trash enclosure and the maneuverability and so on, okay? And improving the aesthetics of the trash enclosure, okay? All right. So we will let you know how much time we don't know still.
Yeah, I think Richard dropped. But if DEP review is.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, so without DEP involvement at the front end, I would say that to get this thing turned around would take us probably around 4 weeks minimum.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little breathing room. I'm going to say 6 weeks to submit. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Does that work, Neil?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, 6 weeks to submit. Thank you, everyone. I beg you, please coordinate with each other. Please don't, Mr. Weisbard, do not receive anything that you haven't, do not submit anything that you haven't personally reviewed yourself to make sure that it's consistent with the other things that you're reviewing. Please, I beg you. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's 1:55 and we still have
one case left. One.
Case left. I think we should switch to the 2 p.m. session like we've done and then take a break right after that one case, okay? So instructions to the David Off Hutcher applicant, who's that normally?
Is that Ron or somebody? I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
no, Ron
so
is no longer with that firm.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Eugene?
I don't know. Probably Eugene.
Okay, so I'm not sure we know who it is, but so why don't you call that case and then we'll announce.
Okay, it's a new case, item number 19, 37845 BZ, 11660 Supton Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, so for the applicant and participants in that case and anybody who might want to, anybody from the public who might want to be calling in, we're going to shift now to our 2 p.m. session. The 2 p.m. session is shown on the screen. So you call in, either you go to the Zoom link for the 2 p.m. session, which you can find on our website, or you call in with the number 646-558-8656 and the passcode, the webinar ID number 946 7511 2161. And if you want to see this again, you'll see it on our, no, you won't see it. You'll have to go to our website and go to hearings. And then you'll see the information for how to get to the 2 p.m. session, which is starting in 3 minutes. And then we'll pick this up from here. Okay. Thank you, everyone. There's the website displayed. And you can see our hearing calendar there. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and see you in a few seconds.